Imagine for a moment you're sitting at your desk and an email arrives. A project you poured your heart into has been rejected. Your chest tightens, your mind races with self-doubt, and for a few seconds, it feels like the world has tilted off its axis. We've all been there, those sudden waves of emotional turmoil that make it hard to think, hard to breathe, hard to see a way forward. It's in these exact moments, when everything feels like it's falling apart, that the ancient Stoics believed we have the greatest opportunity to reclaim our power. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most thoughtful leaders, wrote in his private journals, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." He understood something profound. Your perception doesn't just interpret your reality, it creates it. This is where Stoicism steps in, not as some dusty philosophical theory, but as a practical toolkit for turning distress into clarity and emotional chaos into strategic advantage. It's about shifting the lens through which you see your challenges, reframing obstacles as opportunities, criticism as feedback, and uncertainty as space for growth. Today, we're diving deep into 28 of these powerful mental reframes, each drawn from the core principles of Stoic philosophy, designed to help you navigate life's inevitable storms with more resilience, wisdom, and purpose. These aren't just ideas, they're cognitive switches you can flip to transform frustration into focus, anxiety into action, and turmoil into insight. Throughout this video, we'll explore how you can apply these timeless strategies to modern situations, whether you're dealing with professional setbacks, personal conflicts, or internal doubts. This is about more than just coping. It's about thriving by rewiring your response to difficulty. By the end, you'll have a practical set of mental tools to help you face emotional challenges not as threats, but as invitations to grow stronger, think clearer, and live more intentionally. So if you're ready to turn your toughest moments into your greatest teachers, let's begin. Every difficulty you face is actually a hidden advantage. This is the core of our first Stoic reframe. The obstacle is the way. The Stoics didn't just believe you could get through tough times. They believed those tough times were the very things that built your strength, your resilience, and your character. An obstacle isn't a stop sign on your path, it is the path. It's the raw material you use to forge a better version of yourself. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. He's telling us that the very thing blocking your progress is, if you shift your perspective, the exact tool you need to move forward. It strengthens your mind, clarifies your intentions, and forces you to innovate. Think about a modern career hurdle. Maybe a project you pitched gets rejected, or you're passed over for a promotion. The immediate reaction is often frustration, maybe even a bit of anger or self-doubt. But what if you saw that rejection not as a verdict on your worth, but as free, incredibly valuable feedback? Imagine an aspiring writer who receives a stack of rejection letters. Instead of letting them crush her spirit, she uses them. She analyzes the common threads in the feedback, identifies weaknesses in her character development or pacing, and dedicates the next 6 months to honing her craft with a focus on those specific areas. That rejection, which felt like an ending, actually became the most direct route to her eventual success. It redirected her energy, forced her to grow, and made her work undeniably stronger. The obstacle, the rejection, didn't block the way, it showed her the way. This principle applies everywhere. A personal conflict can be an obstacle that teaches you patience and communication skills. A financial setback can force you to develop better budgeting habits and discover resourcefulness you never knew you had. the Stoic shift happens the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this make of me?" It's about active engagement with your problems, not passive suffering. So right now, I want you to bring to mind one current obstacle in your own life. It could be something at work, in a relationship, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now, just for a moment, consider this. What if this isn't a barrier? What if it's a redirect? What strength could practicing patience here build? What clarity could this difficulty force you to find? This single shift in perception is the first step in turning emotional turmoil into your greatest strategic advantage. What if you learn to love even your worst moments? This is the essence of our second Stoic reframe, a powerful Latin phrase known as Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. It's the radical practice of not just accepting what happens to you, but genuinely embracing it, believing that every single event, especially the difficult and painful ones, is not merely something to be endured, but is actually necessary and beneficial for your development. The Stoics understood that our greatest suffering often comes not from the event itself, but from our fierce resistance to it, our shouting at the universe that things should be different. Amor Fati is about dropping that resistance. It's about saying yes to life in its entirety, which in turn quiets the internal struggle and frees up an enormous amount of mental energy for clear thinking and purposeful action. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thought, famously wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." This isn't about passive resignation or a kind of gloomy surrender. It's an active, dynamic embrace. It's the profound understanding that every thread in the tapestry of your life, the dark and the light, is essential to the complete picture. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, born into slavery, embodied this principle by framing every hardship as an opportunity to practice virtue. He advised his students to actively wish for events to unfold exactly as they do, transforming their relationship with reality itself. Consider a historical example from the world of science. When a devastating fire destroyed years of Thomas Edison's research and prototypes, his response was not one of despair. He reportedly said, "Thank goodness all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start again fresh." He embraced the event, the literal destruction of his life's work, as a chance to begin anew, unburdened by past errors. This is Amor Fati in action. He didn't waste energy lamenting the loss. He immediately channeled his focus into the opportunity it presented. On a more personal level, imagine someone going through a painful divorce. The immediate reaction is often anger, grief, and a sense of failure. But someone practicing Amor Fati would, after allowing themselves to feel those emotions, eventually work to embrace this new reality. They might come to see it not as an ending, but as a brutally necessary lesson in self-reliance, a clearing of the path that allows them to rebuild a life more authentically aligned with who they are. This reframe is perhaps one of the most challenging but also the most liberating. It asks you to find a way to be grateful for the very things you would normally curse. It's not about pretending the pain isn't real. It's about trusting that the pain has a purpose in your larger story. So I want you to take a moment and look back on your own life. Identify one past event that you fiercely resisted: a job loss, a betrayal, an illness, a missed opportunity. You fought against it, you wished it away, you maybe still carry resentment about it. Now, gently ask yourself, what if I had embraced that event exactly as it happened from the very beginning? What strength did it eventually force me to develop that I didn't have before? What clarity did it bring about my true priorities? What path did it accidentally put me on that I would have otherwise missed? Loving your fate is the ultimate act of trust in the process of your own growth. Your power lies not in changing events, but in choosing your response. This is the heart of our third Stoic Reframe, a principle so foundational it's often called the dichotomy of control. The ancient Stoic teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, opened his famous handbook, the Enchiridion, with this very idea. He wrote, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. His point was breathtakingly simple yet life-altering. Your energy is a finite and precious resource. Wasting it on things outside your command is the fastest route to anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion. True strength and peace come from investing that energy solely in the one realm where you are truly sovereign: your own mind, your judgments, and your actions. Think about a common, everyday stressor: being stuck in terrible traffic. You're running late for an important meeting. Your first instinct is probably to tense up, grip the steering wheel, curse the other drivers, and rage against the situation. But what are you actually controlling in this scenario? You cannot control the traffic. You cannot control the red lights. You cannot control the fact that you are late. All of that is in the category of things not within your power. What you can absolutely control, however, is your response. You can choose to take a deep breath. You can choose to put on a podcast you enjoy and use this unexpected pause as a moment to learn or be entertained. You can choose to call ahead and calmly inform the person you're meeting that you've been delayed. This shift doesn't change the external event. The traffic jam is still there, but it completely transforms your internal experience of it. You move from a state of frantic, wasted frustration to a state of calm, resourceful patience. This is emotional efficiency. This principle scales to every significant challenge in life. You cannot control a sudden company layoff, but you can control how you update your resume, network with contacts, and view this as an opportunity for a new direction. You cannot control another person's harsh words or criticism, but you can control whether you internalize it as truth, dismiss it as noise, or extract from it any useful grain of feedback. The practice is to constantly audit your mental energy. Whenever you feel stress rising, ask yourself, is this something within my control? If the answer is no, the Stoic response is to release it, to accept it as part of the external weather of life that you cannot change. If the answer is yes, then you channel your full focus and effort into it. This is how you turn emotional turmoil into strategic insight, by immediately redirecting your attention from the problem you can't solve to the response you can choose. So let's make this practical right now. I want you to bring to mind a current challenge you're facing. It could be a conflict with a loved one, anxiety about a health issue, or stress at work. Now take a mental notepad and draw 2 columns. In the first column, list 3 things about this situation that you cannot control. Be ruthlessly honest. This might include another person's feelings, a past decision, or a market trend. In the second column, list 3 things you can control. This will always be your perspective, your preparation, your effort, your attitude, and the next action you choose to take. Just the act of writing this down creates immediate clarity. It pulls you out of the chaotic storm of everything happening to you and anchors you in the empowering reality of what you can do. This single list is a map that shows you exactly where your power lies and where you can stop wasting your energy. Think of every setback as a rep in the gym for your character. Just as lifting weights tears muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger, Every difficulty you face is actively building your emotional and mental resilience. The Stoics didn't just preach tolerating hardship, they celebrated it as the essential training ground for virtue. They understood that a life without challenges is like an athlete without practice. It might be comfortable, but it leads to weakness and atrophy. Adversity is not an interruption of your progress. It is the very curriculum of your growth. It's the necessary resistance against which you develop strength, patience, and wisdom. This reframe transforms the entire purpose of failure from something to be avoided into something to be leveraged. Seneca, the great Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher, put it beautifully when he wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." He's pointing to this exact idea that the soul is perfected through challenge, much like the body is forged through exertion. A soul that has never faced hardship is untested and fragile. But a soul that has been through the fire of adversity emerges tempered, more capable, and infinitely wiser. This perspective allows you to meet setbacks not with dread, but with a sense of purpose. You can ask, "What is this here to teach me?" instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" It's a shift from victimhood to studenthood where every experience becomes a lesson. Consider a professional athlete who suffers a devastating loss in a championship game. The immediate emotion is crushing disappointment, but the athlete who applies this Stoic reframe doesn't dwell on the feeling of failure. Instead, they immediately go to the game tape. They analyze every play, every missed opportunity, every strategic error. That loss becomes the most valuable data set they could possibly have. It highlights a weakness in their defense they hadn't noticed, or a tendency to crumble under pressure in the final minutes. That setback, that painful loss, directly informs their training strategy for the entire next season. It gives them a crystal-clear focus they would have lacked if they had won. The victory might have felt better in the moment, but the loss made them a better, more complete player. The obstacle, the failure, became the training. This applies far beyond the sports field. Maybe you launched a small business that didn't succeed. The easy narrative is to see it as a waste of time and money, a mark of failure. But the Stoic view asks, what did it train in you? It likely trained your financial discipline, your marketing skills, your ability to handle rejection, and your understanding of a market. That knowledge is now baked into your character, making you more savvy and resilient for your next venture. Perhaps a relationship ended painfully. Instead of only seeing the heartbreak, you can see how it trained you in communication, in understanding your own needs and boundaries, and in emotional recovery. These are not small things, they are fundamental strengths that will serve you in every future connection. So I want you to take a brief moment and look back. Recall one recent failure or setback, something that felt like a defeat at the time. It doesn't have to be monumental, it could be a project that didn't turn out as planned, a difficult conversation that went poorly, a personal goal you fell short of. Now, instead of focusing on the negative outcome, ask yourself, what did this experience train? What muscle did it force me to flex? Did it train my patience, my perseverance, my ability to adapt, my humility? Your greatest strengths are often forged in the fires of your most challenging moments. By identifying the specific strength that was developed, you complete the reframe, turning a source of past frustration into an acknowledged tool for your future. What if you mentally rehearsed losing what you value most? This is the provocative core of our fifth Stoic reframe, a powerful technique known as negative visualization, or in Latin, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds counterintuitive, even pessimistic, to deliberately think about everything that could go wrong. But the Stoic purpose is the exact opposite. It's a profound exercise in emotional inoculation and gratitude. By voluntarily and calmly visiting the worst-case scenario in your mind, you accomplish two crucial things. First, you systematically drain that scenario of its terrifying power, because the unknown is always more frightening than the known. Second, and perhaps more importantly, you get a stunningly clear glimpse of the good things you currently possess, jolting you out of taking them for granted. It's like a vaccine for the soul, a small, controlled dose of adversity that strengthens your resilience against the real thing. Seneca, a master of this practice, advised in his letters, "He who has meditated on the fate of man has bound together all his thoughts. He has given a character to his life. He has set himself above all fear. He will say, in every circumstance, I knew it." That phrase, "I knew it," is the ultimate goal. It's the calm, unshaken recognition that comes from having already walked through the possibility of loss in your mind. When a real challenge arises, it doesn't hit you as a shocking, destabilizing surprise. Instead, you meet it with a sense of preparedness, almost of familiarity. You've already done the emotional rehearsals, so your response can be strategic rather than panicked. This isn't about expecting the worst to happen. It's about being prepared for anything to happen, which is an entirely different and far more empowered state of mind. Let's make this intensely practical. Consider the common fear of losing your job. The typical approach is to avoid thinking about it until the day it happens, at which point you're blindsided by a wave of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. Now apply negative visualization. You sit down for a few minutes and deliberately imagine it. Your manager calls you in, the conversation is brief, and you're handed a termination letter. You feel the initial sting, but then you follow the thread. What would you do next? You'd update your resume. You'd reach out to your professional network. You'd look at your savings and create a strict budget. You might even consider it a forced opportunity to pivot into a field you're more passionate about. By walking through this mental movie, you accomplish several things. You realize that you would, in fact, be okay. The initial fear subsides because you have a plan. But more than that, this exercise often triggers immediate, practical action. You might suddenly feel motivated to add a new certification to your resume, to finally start that emergency fund you've been putting off, or to have a coffee with a contact you've been meaning to reach out to. The visualization of loss directly fuels present-moment gratitude for your current employment and proactive steps to secure your future. This practice extends to every area of life. Visualizing the end of a cherished relationship can make you more present and appreciative of your partner today. Thinking about a health scare can inspire you to not take your current well-being for granted and to make healthier choices now. The Stoics weren't trying to make us live in a state of fear. They were giving us a tool to systematically appreciate the present and fortify ourselves against the future's uncertainty. It turns the vague, haunting anxiety about what might happen into a concrete set of thoughts and potential actions, robbing the future of its power to paralyze you. So here is your challenge, a direct application of this ancient tool. I want you to set a timer for just 5 minutes. Think of one current worry, something that nags at you, a potential problem that causes a low hum of anxiety. It could be a financial concern, a health issue, or a professional uncertainty. Now, for those 5 minutes, give yourself full permission to go there. Mentally walk through the absolute worst-case scenario in calm, logical detail. Don't just feel the fear, follow the steps. What is the first thing you would do? Who would you call? What resources do you have? What would you learn from it? And crucially, notice how you feel when the timer goes off. Most people report a surprising sense of calm, a diminished fear, and a sharp, immediate appreciation for the stability they currently enjoy. This simple act of courageous thinking is how you transform vague dread into clear-eyed preparedness and profound gratitude. Do your best, then let go of the need for a particular outcome. This sixth Stoic reframe, the practice of detaching from outcomes, is one of the most liberating and paradoxically effective shifts you can make. It asks you to pour every ounce of your energy and intention into your actions while simultaneously releasing your grip on how things are supposed to turn out. The anxiety and frustration we so often feel don't come from the effort itself, but from the mental attachment we form to a very specific, desired result. We create a story in our heads about how the future must unfold, and when reality inevitably writes a different ending, we suffer. Stoicism teaches us to write the story of our efforts, but to leave the final chapter unwritten, open to possibility. This isn't about apathy or a lack of ambition. It's about intelligent engagement with the world. It's the difference between being a gambler, nervously betting everything on a single roll of the dice, and being an artisan who finds deep satisfaction in the craft itself, knowing that each well-made piece has inherent value regardless of its eventual home. Marcus Aurelius offered a perfect guide for this mindset when he wrote in his Meditations, "Let not your mind run on what you lack as much as on what you have already." While this might seem indirect, its wisdom is profound. He's directing our attention away from the future outcome we lack, the promotion, the approval, the win, and back toward the present action we already possess. The skill we are applying, the effort we are exerting, the integrity we are demonstrating in this very moment. By focusing on the richness of our current action, we starve the anxious desire for a specific future of its power over us. Another Stoic formulation is to focus exclusively on the means and to treat the ends as something not entirely your own. You control your work ethic, your preparation, your honesty, and your dedication. You do not control the market's reception, another person's decision, or sheer luck. When you internalize this division, your self-worth becomes untethered from external validation. You can fail to achieve a goal without feeling like a failure because your success was already measured in the quality of your attempt. Consider a team working for months on a detailed proposal for a major client. They are deeply invested, working late nights, perfecting every slide. The natural attachment is to the outcome of winning the contract. They imagine the celebration, the recognition, the financial reward. Now imagine the client chooses a competitor. If the team was solely attached to that outcome, this feels like a massive waste of time, a professional failure, a reason for despair. But a team that practiced this Stoic reframe would have a completely different experience. They certainly wanted to win, and they gave it their absolute best shot. But their primary focus was on the process itself, crafting the most compelling argument they could, collaborating effectively, and innovating in their approach. When the no comes, they are certainly disappointed, but not devastated. They can immediately see the value they created for themselves. They now have a world-class proposal template. They strengthened their team's problem-solving muscles, and they made connections within the client's company that could lead to future opportunities. In fact, that very proposal, though rejected by the first client, might be so impressive that it becomes the winning ticket for a different client they pitch to the next week, an opportunity they would have missed if they'd been too demoralized to present it again. By detaching from the single outcome of winning that one contract, they remained adaptable and open to a success that looked different than they had originally planned. This principle applies with beautiful clarity to creative pursuits as well. An author attached to the outcome of writing a bestseller will be crippled by anxiety, second-guessing every word to please a hypothetical audience. An author focused on the outcome of writing the most truthful, well-crafted story they are capable of will find joy and purpose in the daily work of writing itself. The first author's happiness is held hostage by sales figures and critics' reviews, which are entirely outside their control. The second author's happiness is secured every day at the keyboard in the realm of their own effort, which is entirely within their control. The irony, of course, is that the work born from genuine passion and detachment is often the very work that resonates most deeply and finds the largest audience. So let's bring this home. I want you to identify one goal you're currently pursuing where you feel that familiar knot of attachment. Maybe it's a fitness target, a sales goal, a desire for a certain person to reciprocate your feelings, or a project you want to be praised for. Now consciously make the shift. For the next week, I challenge you to redirect 100% of your mental energy from the result to the process. If it's the fitness goal, stop fixating on the number on the scale. Instead, pour all your focus into the feeling of strength in your next workout, the enjoyment of a nutritious meal, the discipline of going to sleep early. If it's the project, stop envisioning the applause. Pour your focus into the craftsmanship of a single sentence, the elegance of a line of code, or the clarity of a spreadsheet. When you find your mind drifting to the desired outcome, gently guide it back to the quality of your present moment action. This is how you build a fortress of inner peace that no external result can ever breach. What if every critique held a hidden lesson? This is the powerful pivot of our seventh Stoic Reframe, seeing criticism not as a personal attack to be deflected, but as a source of valuable data to be analyzed. Our instinctive reaction to criticism is often defensive. We feel judged, diminished, and our ego scrambles to build a wall to protect itself. The Stoics, however, practiced a radical form of intellectual humility. They understood that your perspective on yourself is inherently limited. It's like trying to see the back of your own head without a mirror. Other people, especially your critics, can often see things you cannot. Their feedback, even when delivered poorly or with malicious intent, can serve as that mirror, reflecting back blind spots and areas for improvement you would have otherwise missed. The key is to learn the art of separating the useful signal from the emotional noise. Epictetus, who faced a lifetime of criticism and hardship, provided the perfect operating manual for this. He said, "If someone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, don't make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This is brilliant psychological jiu-jitsu. Instead of taking offense, you're actually agreeing with your critic and then taking it a step further. You're accepting the feedback and even humorously admitting that your faults run even deeper than they realized. This mindset completely disarms the insult. It transforms the critic from an adversary into an unwitting assistant, someone who has just handed you a free report on where you might improve. Your job is not to defend your territory, but to calmly sift through the delivery to find any nugget of truth that could make you stronger. Consider a novelist who publishes their first book. They're thrilled until they start reading the reviews. Among the praise is a 1-star review that stings. The protagonist is completely unlikable and selfish. I couldn't root for them at all. The defensive, ego-driven response is to dismiss the reviewer as someone who didn't get it, to write them off as having poor taste. But the Stoic, after perhaps a moment of initial irritation, gets curious. They set their ego aside and ask, is there data here? They reread their own work, trying to see it through this critical lens. Maybe they realize that in their effort to create a flawed, complex character, they never gave the reader a reason to empathize with them. Perhaps there's a missing scene that could reveal the character's vulnerability or a noble intention behind their selfish actions. That single piece of negative feedback, though painful, becomes the catalyst for a crucial revision that makes their next book and their main character infinitely more compelling and relatable. The criticism wasn't a verdict on their talent. It was a specific, actionable clue on how to level up their craft. This reframe applies everywhere. A manager receiving feedback that their team meetings are inefficient could choose to hear it as an accusation of poor leadership, or they could see it as priceless data pointing toward a need for clearer agendas and time management. A friend telling you that you've been distant lately might feel like a criticism of your character, but it could also be valuable information that your current stress is affecting your relationships, prompting you to be more present. The practice is to consciously depersonalize the feedback. Imagine the criticism is about a third person, a character in a story. This creates the emotional distance needed to analyze it objectively. Ask yourself, stripping away the tone and the person who said it, is the underlying observation true? If it is, you've been handed a gift, a roadmap for growth. If it's not, you can calmly discard it without it costing you a moment's peace. So here is your immediate challenge, a direct application of this Stoic tool. Think of the last piece of criticism you received. It could be from your boss, a partner, a customer, or even a comment online. Now, I want you to actively mine it for value. Set a timer for 2 minutes and write down one thing. What is one constructive insight, however small, that you can extract from that feedback if you choose to look for it? Ignore the delivery and focus purely on the potential lesson. Maybe it's a need to communicate more clearly, to be more patient, or to double-check your work. By performing this simple act of extraction, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a passive target of criticism. You are an active, discerning miner, sifting for the gold that will help you build a better version of yourself. Everything you experience is fleeting, including your struggles. This is the profound, grounding truth at the heart of our 8th Stoic Reframe, embracing impermanence. The Stoics observed the world with a clear-eyed understanding that nothing lasts, not the good, not the bad, not our possessions, our youth, our status, or even our deepest sorrows. Everything is in a constant state of flux, flowing into and out of our lives like the tide. This realization isn't meant to make us nihilistic or sad. It's designed to free us. When we truly internalize that our current circumstances, no matter how intense, are temporary, we stop clinging so desperately to pleasure and stop resisting so fiercely against pain. This acceptance allows us to meet each moment with a lighter grip, engaging with life fully, but without the suffocating attachment that leads to so much of our suffering. It's the practice of living deeply in the present, not because it will last forever, but precisely because it won't. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this to maintain his equilibrium amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire. He wrote in his private journal, "Keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those to come. Existence flows past us like a river. The infinite past and future yawns before us, a gulf whose depths we cannot see." He wasn't being morbid, he was being practical. This meditation was his anchor. In the face of great power, potential betrayal, or immense responsibility, remembering that it was all transient prevented him from becoming arrogant in good times and despairing in bad times. It leveled the emotional playing field, allowing him to respond to events from a place of steady principle rather than reactive emotion. This is the ultimate application of Stoic mindfulness, using the awareness of time's relentless flow to tether yourself to the only moment you ever truly have, right now. Consider the process of grieving a profound loss, perhaps the death of a loved one. The pain can feel absolute, all-consuming, and permanent. It's easy to believe that this void and this ache will define the rest of your life. Someone who applies this Stoic reframe doesn't love the person any less or grieve any less deeply, but they consciously introduce a new thought into their mind alongside the grief. This too shall pass. They understand that the sharp, unbearable edge of the pain will gradually soften. The constant ache will eventually become a more manageable, intermittent visitor. This isn't about forgetting, it's about trusting the natural process of time and healing. This awareness doesn't eliminate the sadness, but it can prevent a person from becoming stuck in it, from building an identity around their loss. It creates a small space for breath, a tiny crack of light that assures them that while the love for the person is permanent, the overwhelming nature of the pain is not. This acceptance of impermanence is what allows them to slowly, gradually, re-engage with life, honoring the past without being imprisoned by it. This principle applies to our daily irritations and anxieties with just as much power. The stressful project at work has a deadline, it will end. The financial difficulty is a season, it will change. The argument with a friend feels like a permanent rift, but with time and effort it can mend. Even our joys are fleeting: the thrill of a new purchase, the high of a success, the bliss of a vacation. Recognizing their temporary nature doesn't rob them of their sweetness, it actually enhances it. It encourages us to be truly present for these good moments, to savor them completely because we know they are not ours to keep. We stop taking them for granted. This reframe is a tool against both despair and entitlement. It comforts us in hard times by reminding us that change is inevitable, and it humbles us in good times by reminding us that this, too, is a passing gift. So I want you to try this on for size with something current. Bring to the front of your mind one worry that's been occupying your thoughts. It might be a health concern, a debt, a conflict, or a fear about the future. Feel the weight of it for a moment. Now speak this simple phrase to yourself, not as a wish but as a statement of fact. This will pass. This current situation is not your permanent state. The variables will change, you will adapt, time will unfold. Your task is not to magically solve it immediately, but to navigate it with the wisdom that it is a chapter, not the entire book. This mindful acceptance of impermanence is the key to unlocking a profound and enduring peace, allowing you to move through the world with resilience and grace. Not every disagreement deserves your attention. This simple, practical advice is the gateway to our 9th Stoic Reframe, the crucial art of choosing your battles wisely. In a world filled with potential conflicts, from online arguments to office politics to family disputes, our energy is constantly under siege. The Stoic approach isn't to avoid all conflict, but to become a master of discernment, to conserve your finite mental and emotional resources for the fights that truly matter, the ones that align with your core values and long-term goals. Everything else is just noise, a distraction that depletes you without offering any real return on your investment. This is about moving from a reactive state, where you feel compelled to respond to every challenge and provocation, to a strategic state, where you consciously decide where to deploy your power. It's the difference between being a leaf blown about by every wind of opinion and being the rooted tree that chooses which storms to weather. Seneca, who advised the powerful Emperor Nero, understood this principle intimately. He wrote, "We are in the habit of exaggerating or imagining or anticipating sorrow. How much more never begins than ends." His insight cuts to the heart of the matter. So much of the strife we experience is not about a real, present danger to our well-being, but about an imagined slight, an exaggerated offense, or a potential future conflict that may never even materialize. We exhaust ourselves fighting phantoms. Stoic discernment is the practice of pausing to ask a simple but powerful question before engaging. Does this conflict actually touch on something I truly value, like my integrity, my family's safety, or a fundamental principle? Or is it merely an assault on my pride, my comfort, or my desire to be right? If it's the latter, the most powerful and strategic response is often to simply let it go, to refuse to play the game at all. Imagine a common modern scenario. You're driving and someone cuts you off abruptly. Your heart rate spikes, your grip tightens on the wheel. The immediate primal urge is to retaliate, to honk your horn, shout, or even chase them down to express your outrage. This is a battle, but is it one worth fighting? What is the potential upside? You might feel a fleeting moment of self-righteous satisfaction. But the downsides are vast. You've sacrificed your peace of mind. You've injected stress chemicals into your own body. You've potentially escalated a situation with a stranger who could be unpredictable. And you've wasted precious time and energy that could have been directed towards something meaningful. Now apply the Stoic filter. Does this person's poor driving truly impact your core values or goals? Unless they actually caused an accident, the answer is almost certainly no. It's a trivial provocation. Choosing to ignore it, to take a deep breath and let the car speed away, is not weakness. It's a profound demonstration of strength. You have just conserved your energy, protected your peace, and arrived at your destination calm and focused instead of agitated and distracted. You won the more important battle, the one for your own state of mind. This principle scales to every aspect of life. At work, a colleague might make a snide comment about your presentation in a meeting. The ego wants to fire back to defend your reputation in the moment. But the Stoic asks, will engaging in this conflict serve my goal of being seen as a collaborative professional, or will it simply create drama and make me look petty? Often, the most powerful move is to acknowledge the feedback without emotion and move on, demonstrating confidence and composure. In a family setting, a relative might bring up a contentious political topic at a holiday gathering. You know the conversation will go nowhere and only create tension. Choosing your battle means deftly changing the subject or politely declining to engage, thereby preserving the harmony of the event for everyone. You sacrifice the need to win a point to win the larger objective of a peaceful gathering. The practice requires honest self-awareness. We often engage in unnecessary battles because we crave validation, we fear looking weak, or we're simply bored. The Stoic Reframe asks you to become the guardian of your own energy, treating it as the precious resource it is. Every time you choose not to engage in a trivial conflict, you are making a deposit into your personal reserve of focus and calm, which you can then draw upon for the challenges that truly define your character and your life's direction. So here is a direct and practical challenge for you this week. Take a mental inventory of your interactions. Identify one argument, one debate, one potential conflict that you know in your gut is not worth your energy. It might be that recurring online debate, a needless correction of a friend, or a desire to prove a point to a family member. Now make a conscious decision to avoid it. Let the comment slide. Don't send the email. Change the subject. Notice what happens to your energy levels when you consciously choose peace over being right. You might just find that in surrendering a battle that never mattered, you claim a much greater victory. What doors open when others close? This is the transformative question at the heart of our 10th Stoic Reframe, a practice of actively seeking the hidden gains and unexpected lessons woven into every experience of loss or deprivation. The Stoics didn't just preach resilience in the face of loss, they trained themselves to see it as a form of alchemy, a process where the base metal of misfortune could be transformed into the gold of newfound freedom, clarity, or purpose. They understood that when something is taken away, space is automatically created, and it is in that empty space that new possibilities can take root. This isn't about denying the real pain of loss, but about expanding your vision to see the entire landscape of what remains and what can now begin. It's a conscious shift from focusing solely on the closed door to scanning the room for the new ones that have just been revealed. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who knew profound loss from his time in slavery, framed this idea with powerful clarity. He taught, "From everything that happens, it is possible to derive benefit." Everything that happens is either a blessing which you can use or a curse which can teach you something. You can choose to see it as either. This is the ultimate expression of agency. He's saying that the event itself is neutral. Its value is determined by the meaning you assign to it and the use you derive from it. A loss can be a curse if you only see the absence, or it can become a hidden blessing if you ask what its presence once prevented and what its absence now allows. This reframe forces you to become an active participant in your own story, moving from a passive victim of circumstance to a curious explorer of its potential. Consider the all-too-common modern experience of an unexpected job loss. The initial blow is devastating, a hit to one's identity, financial security, and sense of stability. The immediate story is one of failure and fear, but for those who apply this Stoic lens, a second, quieter story begins to emerge. They start to ask Epictetus's question, what benefit can be derived? Perhaps that job, while secure, was slowly draining their passion, forcing them into a narrow box that didn't fit their true skills. The loss, as painful as it is, becomes the necessary push they would never have given themselves. It creates the vacant time and the burning platform needed to finally pursue a long-dormant dream. They might use the sudden freedom to retrain in a new field, to launch the small business they'd always talked about, or to simply reassess what they truly want from a career beyond a paycheck. The loss of the job made space for the gain of authenticity and purpose. The closed door of a familiar office forced them to look up and see the open road ahead. This principle applies to more personal forms of loss as well. The end of a significant relationship, while heartbreaking, often clears away emotional clutter and outdated patterns. It creates the space for self-discovery and for a future relationship that is a better fit. The loss of a cherished possession, perhaps in a move or a disaster, can unexpectedly free a person from the burden of materialism, teaching them that their security and identity were never in those objects to begin with. Even the loss of a deeply held belief can be reframed. The crumbling of an old worldview, while disorienting, creates the necessary vacuum for a new, more mature and personal understanding to form. The Stoic practice is to sit with the emptiness and ask not, "Why did I lose this?" but, "What has this loss now made possible?" So I want to invite you to try this powerful reframe for yourself. Cast your mind back to a significant loss in your own life. It could be the end of a relationship, a missed opportunity, a financial setback, or the passing of a chapter of your life. Acknowledge the genuine pain it caused. Then, gently ask yourself a new set of questions. What did that loss ultimately make space for? What door did it close that, in hindsight, needed to be closed? What strength did I develop precisely because I had to navigate that emptiness? You might find that a period of loneliness taught you the value of your own company. A financial failure taught you resourcefulness. A rejected application led you to a path that was far more suited to your talents. By identifying the hidden gain, you complete the alchemy, transforming a past source of sorrow into an acknowledged foundation for your present strength. Try discomfort by choice to fear it less by chance. This 11th Stoic reframe, the deliberate practice of voluntary discomfort, might be one of the most counterintuitive yet powerful tools in the entire philosophy. In a world relentlessly optimized for ease and instant gratification, the idea of willingly choosing hardship seems almost absurd. But the Stoics weren't masochists, they were pragmatic psychologists. They understood that our deep-seated fear of discomfort and our addiction to comfort are major sources of anxiety and fragility. By periodically and voluntarily stepping into manageable hardship, we systematically inoculate ourselves against the shock of future adversity that we didn't choose. It's like a vaccine for the soul, a small, controlled dose of difficulty that trains your mind to remain calm and capable when life inevitably delivers a much larger, uncontrolled dose. This practice does two profound things. It builds a resilient buffer against future misfortune, and it dramatically heightens your appreciation for the ordinary comforts you usually take for granted. The Roman Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, a major influence on Epictetus, was a powerful advocate for this training. He argued that comfort and luxury make us soft, while difficulty and challenge forge strength. He said, "How can we reasonably expect that a person who has always shunned hardship will be able to bear up under it? How can a person who has never wanted for anything be grateful for what they have?" His point cuts to the core of the practice. If your entire life is structured to avoid even the slightest inconvenience, the first real challenge you face will feel like a catastrophic earthquake. But if you have regularly practiced navigating minor discomforts, a major setback feels like a larger wave, but one you know how to swim in. You've built the psychological muscles for it. Furthermore, by temporarily giving up something you enjoy, you break the spell of taking it for granted. Skipping a meal makes you appreciate the next one deeply. Sleeping on a harder surface makes your own bed feel like a cloud. This practice is a direct engine for generating gratitude. Seneca, a man of immense wealth, still practiced this principle rigorously. He would periodically adopt a lifestyle of extreme frugality for a few days, wearing rough clothing and eating only the plainest bread. He wrote about this, explaining, "I want to remind myself of what it's like to have nothing, so that if I lose everything, the blow will be less severe." He wasn't preparing for a specific disaster, he was maintaining his emotional fitness. He knew that his fortune was subject to the whims of fate, a bad investment, an emperor's disfavor, a market crash. By voluntarily experiencing a taste of poverty, he removed its terror. He proved to himself that he could handle it, that his happiness and his character were not dependent on his external circumstances. This is the ultimate goal, to reach a state where your inner peace is unassailable, whether you are feasting or fasting, in a palace or a simple room. The modern applications of this are endless and don't require moving into a barrel like the famous Stoic Diogenes. It's about small, intentional acts of self-discipline. Taking a cold shower for the final minute of your morning routine is a classic example. That initial shock of cold water triggers a conscious choice to breathe deeply and stay calm instead of panicking and fleeing. It's a daily, minute-long masterclass in controlling your reaction to an unpleasant stimulus. Another practice is a periodic digital fast, leaving your phone at home for an entire day or turning off all notifications for a weekend. This voluntary discomfort of feeling disconnected and potentially missing out strengthens your focus and reveals how much mental space is usually consumed by digital noise. Even something as simple as choosing to walk somewhere instead of driving, or fasting between meals for a set period, can serve this purpose. The activity itself is less important than the intentionality behind it. You are not suffering, you are training. The true power of this reframe is revealed not during the practice itself, but later, when involuntary discomfort strikes. The person who has practiced cold showers is far less rattled by a broken heater on a winter day. The person who has practiced digital detoxes handles a lost phone with more equanimity. The person who has fasted voluntarily deals with a delayed meal without becoming hangry and irritable. They have a deep-seated knowledge born of experience that they can handle discomfort. This knowledge is a form of quiet confidence that permeates your entire life, making you less anxious about the future and more adaptable in the present. So here is a direct challenge, a way to put this ancient Stoic tool to work immediately. Sometime in the next 7 days, I want you to consciously incorporate one small, voluntary discomfort into your routine. It could be as simple as taking that cold shower, skipping your afternoon snack, walking instead of driving for a short errand, or leaving your phone in another room for an entire evening. Pay close attention to the initial resistance you feel, and then observe the calm that follows once you move through it. Notice how the simple comforts you return to afterward feel richer and more appreciated. This small act is not a punishment, it is a direct investment in your future resilience, a down payment on unshakable peace. Between what happens and what you do, there is a space, use it. This is the essence of our 12th Stoic Reframe, a simple yet transformative practice that elevates you from a passive reactor to an active responder. In that critical gap between a triggering event and your ensuing action lies your entire power to choose. Your initial emotional impulse, the flash of anger, the surge of fear, the sting of insult, is automatic, a primal signal from your nervous system. But your subsequent move, the words you speak or the action you take, does not have to be. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, and it is the very heart of emotional self-mastery. It's the difference between being a puppet whose strings are pulled by every external event and being the puppeteer who consciously decides which strings to pull. This pause is not a sign of weakness or indecision. It is the ultimate expression of your agency, the moment you reclaim control of your inner citadel from the chaos of the outside world. Epictetus, who spent his life refining this exact skill, gave us the perfect instruction manual. He taught, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them." He goes even deeper, advising us to not be carried away by the initial impression of a situation. When someone insults you, he would say, the initial impression is simply that sound waves have reached your ear. The disturbance, the anger, the hurt that comes in the next moment, when you give your assent to the judgment that you have been wronged and must retaliate. The Stoic pause is the practice of inserting a moment of conscious awareness right between that impression and that judgment. It's the mental equivalent of catching a ball instead of letting it hit you in the face. You intercept the triggering event, hold it, examine it, and then decide what, if anything, you want to do with it. This tiny space is where your freedom lies. Imagine a heated moment that could happen to any of us. You've just finished a lengthy, carefully prepared report for your team, and you're sharing it in a meeting. A colleague immediately dismisses your work, pointing out a minor error in front of everyone and using a condescending tone. The initial impression is the sound of their words. The automatic, primal reaction is a hot wave of humiliation and anger. Your face flushes, your heart pounds, and every fiber of your being wants to fire back with a sharp retort, to defend your work and put them in their place. This is the cliff's edge of regret. Now apply the Stoic pause. Instead of letting that reactive wave carry you over the edge, you take one deep, intentional breath. You create that space. In those 5 seconds, 1,000 new possibilities open up. You might realize that your colleague is under immense pressure from their own boss and is taking it out on you. You might see that the error they pointed out is actually trivial and doesn't undermine your core argument. You might decide that the most powerful response is not to engage with the insult, but to simply acknowledge the correction calmly and steer the conversation back to the larger points of the report. By pausing, you avoided a public argument, protected your professional reputation, and likely earned the respect of everyone in the room for keeping your composure. You responded to the situation rather than reacting to the provocation. This principle is a superpower in every arena of life. In a traffic jam, the stimulus is the stopped car. The reaction is leaning on the horn and stewing in frustration. The response, chosen after a pause, is putting on an interesting podcast and accepting the delay. In a disagreement with your partner, the stimulus is a critical comment. The reaction is a defensive and escalating counterattack. The response is taking a breath and saying, "It sounds like you're upset. Can you help me understand why?" The pause is the circuit breaker that stops the surge of emotional electricity from causing a short circuit in your relationships and your peace of mind. It gives you the time to access your prefrontal cortex, your brain's center for rational thought and long-term planning, instead of letting your amygdala, the primal threat detector, run the show. So here is your immediate and practical mission, a direct way to build this critical muscle. The next time you feel that familiar surge of emotion, whether it's anger at a comment online, frustration with a child, or anxiety from a stressful email, I want you to practice the 5-second pause. Before you type a word, say a thing, or make a face, just stop. Literally count to 5 in your head. In that space, ask yourself one simple question. What is the most constructive and principled response here, not just the most satisfying reaction? This isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about honoring them enough to not let them dictate your life in ways you'll later regret. That tiny space is the birthplace of your character, the moment where emotional turmoil is filtered into strategic, purposeful action. People do what makes sense to them, not to harm you. This 13th Stoic Reframe is a profound exercise in depersonalizing the behavior of others, a mental shift that can dissolve a tremendous amount of unnecessary conflict and emotional distress. The core idea is that every person is operating from their own unique constellation of experiences, beliefs, fears, and knowledge. Their actions are almost always a reflection of their internal state and their limited understanding of the world, not a calculated attack on you. When someone acts in a way that feels hurtful, dismissive, or irrational, our ego's first move is to place ourselves at the center of the story. Why are they doing this to me? Stoicism asks us to step back from that self-centered narrative and adopt a more objective, almost clinical perspective. It's not about you, it's about them. Their behavior is the inevitable output of their current programming. Understanding this doesn't excuse poor behavior, but it does strip it of its personal sting and allows you to respond with clarity instead of reacting with pain. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with countless difficult people as emperor, constantly reminded himself of this to maintain his composure and his sense of justice. He wrote in his private meditations, "When people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you'll feel sympathy rather than outrage or anger. You see that they were misguided, and you'll soon realize that your task is to forgive them." This is a breathtakingly compassionate and strategic viewpoint. He's not saying the injury is okay. He's saying that the person causing it is operating from a place of profound error. They believe their action will bring them some good or avoid some harm, but their judgment is clouded. They are, in a sense, blind to the full impact of their actions. Seeing them as misguided rather than malicious completely changes the emotional equation. Your anger naturally gives way to a form of pity or understanding, and from that calmer place, you can choose a response that aligns with your own principles, not their chaos. Let's bring this to life with a common workplace scenario. Imagine you receive blunt, seemingly harsh criticism on a project from a senior colleague. Your initial, raw reaction is to feel attacked, undervalued, and defensive. You might spend hours stewing, crafting a counter-argument, or even considering retaliating in some way. This is the ego's story. They are out to get you. Now apply the Stoic Reframe. Instead of taking it personally, you get curious about their internal world. You might recall that this colleague has been under immense pressure from leadership to cut costs and accelerate timelines. Their blunt criticism isn't about the quality of your character. It's a reflection of their own stress and their narrow focus on efficiency over diplomacy. Perhaps they lack the social skills to deliver feedback constructively. Maybe they're mimicking the harsh management style they themselves experienced coming up. Their action becomes inevitable, a predictable outcome of their stress, their training, and their current priorities. This understanding doesn't mean you have to accept poor treatment, but it completely changes how you handle it. Instead of firing back a defensive email, you might schedule a calm conversation. I received your feedback on the project. To make sure I understand your priorities correctly, could we discuss the key objectives you're most concerned about? This response addresses the real issue, their need for specific results, without getting entangled in the emotional delivery. You've moved from a personal conflict to a problem-solving discussion. This principle is a master key for diffusing conflict in every relationship. The friend who forgets your birthday isn't signaling that you're unimportant. They are likely overwhelmed by their own life and operating from a place of distraction. The driver who cuts you off isn't personally disrespecting you. They are probably anxious, late, or simply unaware of their surroundings, a prisoner of their own rushed mindset. The family member who makes a hurtful comment is often projecting their own insecurities and unresolved pain. When you train yourself to see actions as inevitable outputs of a person's internal state, you stop collecting offenses. You stop feeling like the world is constantly targeting you. This creates an immense sense of emotional freedom and conserves your energy for the things you can actually control, your own judgments and responses. So I invite you to put this reframe into practice right now. Bring to mind a recent conflict or a hurtful action from someone else that's been bothering you. It could be something small, like a snippy comment from a partner, or something larger, like a professional slight. Now, consciously shift the narrative. For just a few minutes, try to see the situation entirely from their perspective. What pressures might they be under? What fears or insecurities could be driving their behavior? What limited information might they have had? What good did they think they were achieving, however misguided their method? This isn't about justifying their action, but about understanding its source. By doing this, you accomplish something powerful. You reclaim your peace. You transform a personal insult into an impersonal event. And in that space, you find the freedom to choose your next move with wisdom and compassion, rather than being dragged into a cycle of reaction and resentment. What does this difficulty show you about yourself? This 14th Stoic Reframe invites you to see every challenge not as a random punishment from the universe, but as a brilliantly honest mirror held up to your character. Adversity has a unique way of stripping away our pretenses and comfortable stories, revealing the raw material of who we really are, our hidden strengths, our unacknowledged weaknesses, and the core values we actually live by when the pressure is on. The Stoics believed that prosperity could often be a mask, allowing us to hide behind routines and comforts, but hardship forces a moment of radical truth. It asks you direct questions about your courage, your patience, your resilience, and your priorities. Your response to the difficulty becomes the most accurate report card on your current state of development, offering priceless data on exactly where you need to grow. This shift turns a threatening external event into an invaluable internal diagnostic tool. Seneca, who faced exile, chronic illness, and ultimately a death sentence from his former student Nero, wrote powerfully about this reflective quality of hardship. He stated, "Fire is the test of gold, adversity of strong men." His metaphor is perfect. You don't truly know the purity of gold until you subject it to extreme heat, and you don't truly know the strength of your own character until it is tested by extreme circumstances. The challenge itself is the furnace. It doesn't create new flaws or strengths. It simply reveals what was already there, hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Your task is to have the courage to look clearly into that mirror without flinching, to see not just the cracks but also the solid, unbreakable parts you never knew you had. This honest assessment is the first and most crucial step in the project of building a more resilient and virtuous self. Consider the example of an entrepreneur whose first startup fails spectacularly after years of hard work and investment. The immediate experience is one of shame, financial loss, and a crushing blow to their identity as a savvy businessperson. It's easy to externalize the blame, to point fingers at a bad market, an unreliable partner, or unfair competition. But the entrepreneur who applies this Stoic reframe will, after grieving the loss, turn the mirror inward. They will ask, what did this failure reveal about me? Perhaps it showed a streak of overconfidence that led them to ignore early warning signs from their advisors. Maybe it revealed a weakness in their leadership, showing they were better at generating ideas than at managing a team through tough times. This is not about self-flagellation, it's about data collection. That painful revelation of overconfidence is now the key to their future success. It forces a necessary humility, a willingness to listen, and a commitment to shoring up their managerial skills. The business failure, while painful, became the exact curriculum they needed to eventually succeed. It showed them the chapter they had skipped in their own education. This principle applies to all of life's smaller adversities with just as much clarity. A heated argument with a loved one is a mirror reflecting your capacity for patience and your skill in communication under stress. A missed deadline at work can reveal a tendency toward procrastination or a difficulty in setting boundaries. Even something as simple as your reaction to being stuck in traffic holds up a mirror to your everyday levels of impatience and your ability to manage frustration. The event itself is neutral. Its value lies in what it shows you about your own operating system. The goal is to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this revealing about me?" This turns you from a passive victim of circumstance into an active student of your own soul, constantly gathering intelligence on how to become a stronger, wiser, and more effective human being. So let's bring this mirror down to the present moment. I want you to bring to mind one current challenge you are navigating. It could be a source of stress at work, a tension in a relationship, a financial pressure, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now look directly into the mirror it provides. Ask yourself, what specific trait is this difficulty testing right now? Is it testing your perseverance by asking you to keep going when you want to quit? Is it testing your integrity by presenting an easy but dishonest way out? Is it testing your courage by forcing you to have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding? Or is it perhaps testing your self-worth by challenging you to find validation from within rather than from external success? Name the trait. Just the act of identification is a profound act of self-awareness. It transforms the challenge from a vague, oppressive cloud into a specific, manageable training exercise for a single, defined muscle of your character. This is how you begin the alchemical process of turning leaden hardship into golden self-knowledge. The fewer things you need, the freer you become. This 15th Stoic reframe turns a common assumption about happiness completely on its head. We live in a culture that constantly whispers a single, seductive message. Fulfillment lies in acquiring more money, more status, more possessions, more experiences. But the Stoics observed this chase and identified it as the primary engine of our anxiety and dissatisfaction. They proposed a radical alternative, that true freedom and peace are not found in getting what you want, but in systematically wanting less. Every desire you nurture is like a chain you voluntarily attach to your own peace of mind, because its fulfillment depends on factors outside your control. When you tie your happiness to external acquisitions, you hand over the keys to your inner state to the unpredictable whims of fate, other people, and the market. The Stoic practice is to carefully examine each want and ask a simple but profound question: is this desire serving my freedom, or is it becoming my master? Epictetus, who began his life with virtually no material possessions, framed this idea with stunning clarity. He taught his students, freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. This is the cornerstone of the entire Reframe. He isn't advocating for a life of miserable deprivation. He's pointing to a more sophisticated form of mathematics for the soul. He's saying that your contentment is not a sum of your acquisitions, but the difference between your desires and your possessions. You can work frantically to increase the number of things you own, which is exhausting and uncertain, or you can find a far more reliable and immediate peace by consciously reducing the number of things you crave. The latter is entirely within your power, starting right now. He advised craving only what is within your reach, which, for a Stoic, ultimately means craving only your own virtue, your own rational choices, and your own correct judgments. Everything else is a bonus, not a requirement for a good life. Consider the modern phenomenon of downsizing. Imagine a successful professional who has climbed the corporate ladder for decades, accumulating a large home, 2 luxury cars, and a house full of expensive furnishings. On the surface, they have achieved the dream, but beneath it, they feel a constant low hum of stress. The massive mortgage, the fear of a market downturn, the endless maintenance, the pressure to keep up appearances, the feeling that they must keep running on the hamster wheel just to maintain this standard of living. Their possessions, which were supposed to symbolize freedom, have actually become their prison. Now, imagine this person makes a radical decision. They sell the large home, move into a modest but comfortable apartment, sell 1 car, and drastically reduce their clutter. The initial feeling might be one of loss, but soon a new sensation emerges: lightness. The lowered expenses mean they have more flexibility in their career choices. The reduced square footage means less time spent cleaning and maintaining. The absence of clutter creates mental space. They discover that their joy comes not from the objects they released, but from the freedom and time those objects were secretly consuming. They didn't find happiness by getting more, they found it by wanting less. Their reduction in desire led to an explosion of genuine freedom. This principle extends far beyond material possessions. We can apply it to our desires for approval, for control, and for specific outcomes. The desire for everyone to like you is a heavy chain. Releasing it allows you to act with integrity, even when it's unpopular. The desire to control every detail of a project is a chain. Releasing it allows you to delegate, trust others, and reduce your own stress. The desire for a particular person to reciprocate your feelings is a chain. Releasing it allows you to appreciate the relationship for what it is, rather than suffering over what it is not. Each desire we consciously identify and release is a declaration of independence. It is a vote for inner sovereignty over external validation. The goal is to reach a state where your happiness is built on the solid foundation of your own character and actions, making you immune to the inevitable ups and downs of fortune. This is the ultimate form of resilience, so I want to offer you a direct and practical exercise in this liberating form, Chinese letter of subtraction. Take a moment to look inward at the landscape of your own wants. I want you to identify one specific desire that you can consciously choose to release, even if just for this week. It doesn't have to be a grand, life-altering thing. It could be the desire for a particular luxury item you've been craving. It could be the desire to have the last word in every disagreement. It could be the desire for your day to unfold exactly as you planned, without any interruptions or surprises. Now make a conscious decision to let that specific desire go. Don't fight it or suppress it, simply acknowledge it and then gently release your grip on it. Notice what happens in the space that this release creates. You might feel a sense of relief, a lightness, or a quiet confidence that you are okay without that thing being fulfilled. This small act is a powerful rehearsal for a larger life of freedom, where your peace is no longer contingent on the world conforming to your wants, but is instead an unshakable state that you carry within you, regardless of what you have or don't have. You have a limited amount of time. How will you use it? This 16th Stoic Reframe cuts through all the noise and gets to the heart of what it means to live a purposeful life. The Stoics practiced a powerful form of time awareness known as memento mori, the remembrance of death, not to instill fear, but to instill urgency and clarity. They understood that your time is the one truly non-renewable resource you possess. Money can be earned and lost and earned again. Possessions can be replaced. Status can fluctuate, but each moment that passes is gone forever, and the total number of moments you have is both unknown and finite. This realization is not morbid. It is the ultimate catalyst for living with intention. It forces you to constantly ask the most important question: is what I am doing right now worthy of my limited and precious time? This reframe is about shifting from being a passive passenger through your days to becoming the conscious architect of your life, deliberately designing how your most valuable asset is spent. Seneca, in his profound essay on the shortness of life, delivered a timeless wake-up call that resonates just as powerfully today. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. His point is revolutionary. We often complain about not having enough time, but Seneca argues that the problem isn't the length of our lives. It's how we squander it on trivialities, distractions, and pursuits that do not align with our deepest values. We allow our time to be stolen by the demands of others, by mindless entertainment, by worry about things outside our control, and by procrastination on what truly matters. A life well managed, where attention is fiercely guarded and directed toward meaningful pursuits, is a long and rich life, regardless of the number of years. A life frittered away on distraction is a short one, even if it spans a century. Consider the modern reality of digital distraction. Imagine a talented graphic designer who dreams of launching her own freelance business. She has the skills and the drive, but she consistently tells herself she doesn't have the time, working a full-time job and managing family responsibilities. Yet, if she were to conduct a brutal audit of her last week, she might discover that she spent over 15 hours scrolling through social media, binge-watching a television series, and getting lost in online debates that left her feeling empty and agitated. That is 15 hours that could have been invested in building her website, creating a portfolio, or reaching out to potential clients. The Stoic Reframe isn't about eliminating all leisure. It's about recognizing the staggering opportunity cost of those hours. By reclaiming even a fraction of that time from low-value distractions and redirecting it toward her high-value goal, she wouldn't be finding more time. She would be creating a more meaningful life with the time she already has. She would be proving Seneca right, transforming a short life of busyness into a long life of achievement and purpose. This practice of time stewardship extends far beyond career goals. It applies to our relationships, our health, and our personal growth. Choosing to spend 30 minutes in focused conversation with your child instead of scrolling on your phone is an investment of time that pays dividends in connection. Choosing to use your lunch break for a walk outside rather than gossiping with colleagues is an investment in your physical and mental well-being. Choosing to read a book that challenges you instead of watching another predictable show is an investment in your intellectual capital. Every day presents you with countless micro-choices about your time, and the sum of those choices defines the quality and direction of your entire life. The Stoic asks you to become a mindful investor, not a careless spender of your moments. So let's move from philosophy to immediate action. I want you to perform a simple but powerful audit. Cast your mind back over the last 7 days. Don't judge it, just review it with the detached curiosity of an accountant going over a ledger. Where did your time actually go? Roughly how many hours were spent on work that felt meaningful? How many on passive consumption? How many on nurturing important relationships? How many were simply lost to mental clutter, worry, or procrastination? Now, based on that honest assessment, identify one specific area where you can make a deliberate adjustment. Perhaps it's vowing to check social media only once a day instead of dozens of times. Maybe it's blocking out 30 minutes each morning for deep work on a personal project before the demands of the world intrude. It could be as simple as turning a daily commute into a time for listening to an educational podcast instead of the news. This isn't about packing every second with productivity. It's about ensuring that a significant portion of your time is aligned with who you want to be and what you want your life to stand for. By consciously reallocating your attention, you aren't just managing time, you are honoring the gift of your existence. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. This 17th Stoic Reframe is perhaps the most radical and liberating of them all, challenging the very foundation of how we experience reality. The core idea is that events in the world are, in and of themselves, completely neutral. They are just facts, just data points. The emotional charge, the joy, the pain, the anxiety, the excitement, is not contained within the event. It is a layer of meaning that we, through our judgments, actively project onto the event. The rain falling from the sky is just water. It is neither good nor bad. It only becomes a disaster when it ruins your picnic, or a blessing when it saves a farmer's crops from drought. The event is the same. The story you tell about it is what determines your entire emotional reality. This reframe hands you the ultimate power, the ability to go back and edit the story, to reassign the meaning, and in doing so, completely transform your emotional experience from the inside out. Epictetus, who dedicated his life to teaching the mechanics of human happiness, laid this out with stunning clarity. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." This is the entire philosophy in a single sentence. He's telling us that the source of our suffering is never the external thing itself, but the internal interpretation we cling to. Your boss's critical feedback is just a series of sound waves. It is your judgment that it represents a threat to your job security that creates the anxiety. A flight cancellation is a simple change in schedule. It is your judgment that it has ruined your carefully laid plans that creates the frustration. The Stoic practice is to learn to separate the raw event from the judgmental story we instantly wrap around it. This creates a crucial gap of awareness, a space where you can pause and ask, is this the only way to see this, or am I, out of habit, applying a meaning that causes me unnecessary distress? Consider the classic example of rain on the day of an outdoor wedding. For the couple and their guests, the initial judgment is one of disappointment and frustration. The rain is bad. It's ruining the beautiful ceremony they envisioned, but now apply the Stoic Reframe. The rain is neutral. Strip away the judgment and look at the facts. Water is falling from the sky. Now reassign the meaning. Could this be good? Perhaps the rain forces a last-minute move to a cozy indoor setting that actually feels more intimate and memorable. Perhaps it creates a funny, shared story of adversity that the couple and their guests will laugh about for years. Perhaps it's a symbolic wash, clearing the air for a fresh start. Now, look at the same event from the perspective of a farmer in the same region who has been praying for rain for weeks to save their withering crops. For them, the very same rainfall is an answered prayer, a miracle, an unambiguously good event. The rain didn't change. The only thing that changed was the meaning assigned to it by the observer. This is the power you hold. This principle is a master key for diffusing daily frustrations. You're stuck in traffic. The event, cars are moving slowly. The automatic judgment, this is a terrible delay. I'm going to be late. This is ruining my day. This story creates stress and anger. Now reassign the meaning. This is an unexpected gift of 20 minutes of solitude. I can listen to an audiobook I love. I can call a friend I've been meaning to catch up with. I can use the time to think through a problem without interruption. The event hasn't changed, but your emotional experience of it has been completely transformed from suffering to opportunity. A project at work gets cancelled. The event, an initiative, is no longer moving forward. The automatic judgment, all my hard work was wasted. My contribution wasn't valued. This is a professional failure. This story creates dejection and self-doubt. Reassign the meaning. This is a strategic decision that frees up my time and energy for a new, potentially more impactful project. The work I did wasn't wasted. It was valuable practice that honed my skills and may be applicable elsewhere. This cancellation is data that helps me understand the company's shifting priorities better. The event is the same, but the new narrative is empowering instead of debilitating. So I want to offer you a direct and immediate challenge, a way to put this profound cognitive tool into practice. Think of one event from the last week that you automatically labeled as bad. It could be something small, like spilling coffee on your shirt, or something larger, like a disagreement with a friend. First, state the event in completely neutral, objective terms. Instead of, "I had a terrible argument," say, "A conversation occurred where two people expressed differing opinions." Feel the difference. The emotional charge begins to dissolve. Now, consciously challenge yourself to reassign the meaning. Can you find one potential positive or neutral interpretation? Maybe the spilled coffee forced you to change into a shirt you'd forgotten you loved. Maybe the disagreement, while uncomfortable, revealed an important difference in perspective that needed to be aired out for the health of the relationship. This isn't about naive positivity. It's about intellectual flexibility. It's about proving to yourself that you are not a passive recipient of emotional experiences, but the active author of them. By choosing to rewrite the story, you reclaim authority over your inner world. What if you already have everything you need right now? This 18th Stoic Reframe invites you into a profound shift from constant striving to deep appreciation, training your mind to recognize the abundance that already exists in your present moment. In a culture that constantly pushes us toward the next achievement, the next purchase, the next milestone, we are conditioned to live in a state of perpetual wanting. This endless pursuit keeps our nervous system in a subtle but constant state of anxiety, always focused on a future where we will finally be satisfied. The Stoics identified this as a primary source of our unhappiness and developed a powerful antidote, the daily, disciplined practice of gratitude. This isn't a vague feeling of positivity. It's an active cognitive exercise, a deliberate redirecting of your attention from what you lack to what you already possess. It's the mental equivalent of stopping to smell the roses, but with a crucial difference. You are systematically training your brain to notice the roses that are already blooming all around you every single day. Marcus Aurelius, despite the immense pressure and responsibility of leading the Roman Empire, consistently practiced this form of mindful appreciation. He wrote in his private journal, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This wasn't just poetic musing, it was a foundational part of his Stoic routine. He bookended his days with reflections designed to anchor him in the present and inoculate him against the anxieties of power and the fear of loss. By starting his day by mentally cataloging his blessings, the functionality of his body, the clarity of his mind, the opportunity to contribute, he built a psychological buffer against the inevitable frustrations and challenges he would face. He understood that gratitude is not a passive emotion that happens to you when circumstances are perfect. It is an active skill you cultivate, especially when circumstances are difficult. It is a choice to focus on the light rather than the shadow, a decision that is entirely within your control regardless of external events. The practical application of this is beautifully simple yet transformative. One of the most effective Stoic exercises is the daily gratitude list. This isn't about writing down broad, abstract concepts like, "I'm grateful for my family." The power is in the specific sensory details. It's the difference between a generic label and a vivid painting. For instance, instead of, "I'm grateful for my health," you might write, "I'm grateful for the feeling of strength in my legs during my walk this morning, for the deep breath of fresh air I just took, and for the clear-headed focus I have while working on this project." This specificity forces you out of your head and into your actual lived experience, grounding you in the tangible reality of your life as it is, not as you think it should be. Another person might be grateful for the warmth of the sun on their skin during a break outside, the taste of a perfectly brewed cup of coffee, or the sound of a loved one's laughter from the next room. These are not grand, life-altering events. They are the tiny, beautiful threads that weave together to form the fabric of a good life, and we miss them entirely when we are fixated on the future. This practice acts as a direct counterweight to the brain's natural negativity bias, which is wired to scan for threats and problems. By consciously dedicating a few minutes each day to actively looking for what's good, true, and beautiful in your current reality, you are quite literally rewiring your neural pathways. You are strengthening the circuits associated with contentment and satisfaction, making it easier to access those states over time. When anxiety about an upcoming deadline arises, the practiced gratitude for your own capability to work hard can put the challenge in perspective. When dissatisfaction with your home creeps in, the practiced gratitude for the shelter it provides and the memories within its walls can instantly re-center you. Gratitude doesn't solve your problems, but it fundamentally changes the emotional environment in which you solve them, replacing a background of lack with a foundation of sufficiency. It is the ultimate strategy for finding freedom, not by acquiring more, but by fully appreciating what you already have. So let's move this from philosophy to immediate action, right where you are. I want you to press pause for just a moment in your day, grab a piece of paper, open the Notes app on your phone, or simply bring your full attention to this task. Your challenge is to identify 3 specific things you are genuinely grateful for in this exact moment. Don't reach for the big, obvious ones. Look for the small, often overlooked details. It could be the comfort of the chair you're sitting in, the fact that you learned something new from this video, the kindness a stranger showed you earlier, or simply the quiet moment you have to yourself right now. Write them down or hold them clearly in your mind. Feel the shift in your energy as you do this. This simple act is a radical declaration that right now, in this moment, you are okay. You are pulling your mind out of the anxious future and the regretful past and planting it firmly in the fertile ground of the present, where all real peace and power reside. Your life is not a fixed story but a draft you can edit. This 19th Stoic Reframe invites you to step into the role of both author and editor of your own existence, viewing each day not as a predetermined chapter you must live out, but as a page where you can make revisions, refine your narrative, and continuously improve the manuscript. The Stoics saw life not as a static state to be endured, but as an active, ongoing project of self-development, a perpetual opportunity to cultivate wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This perspective transforms the pressure of perfection into the freedom of progress. You are not a finished product, and your past does not have to dictate your future. Every morning presents a blank page, a chance to add a new sentence, correct a previous error, or even change the entire direction of the story based on what you've learned. This is the ultimate expression of agency, where your focus shifts from who you are supposed to be to who you are actively choosing to become. Seneca, in his moral letters to Lucilius, captured this spirit of continuous improvement with his characteristic clarity. He wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This simple, powerful statement is a manifesto for the project-based life. He isn't just suggesting we accumulate knowledge, he's advocating for a lifelong, active apprenticeship in the art of living well. For Seneca, each day was a classroom, and every experience, especially the difficult ones, was a lesson designed to teach us more about virtue, resilience, and our own capacity for growth. He believed that to stop learning was to stop living in any meaningful sense. This mindset turns boredom into curiosity, frustration into a puzzle to be solved, and failure into the most valuable feedback of all. The project is never complete, and that is its greatest feature. There is always a higher level of understanding to reach, a more compassionate response to practice, a deeper well of courage to draw from. The goal is not to finish the draft but to fall in love with the process of editing it. Imagine someone who has carried a label from their youth, perhaps undisciplined or not a leader. For years, they've accepted this as a fixed part of their identity, a permanent character flaw written into their story. Then they encounter this Stoic reframe and something clicks. They begin to see their life as a project. That old label isn't a life sentence, it's just a rough first draft. So they decide to make an edit. They start small, committing to one disciplined act each day, making their bed, completing a task they've been avoiding, or following a budget. They don't expect to transform overnight. Some days the edit is messy, they slip up, but instead of seeing that as proof of their flawed identity, they now see it as a simple error to be corrected in the next draft. They analyze what went wrong and adjust their approach. Over weeks and months, these small, consistent edits accumulate. The character in their story slowly evolves from undisciplined to someone who practices discipline. They haven't erased the past, they have simply revised the narrative line by line, action by action. This approach is incredibly freeing because it makes everything an experiment. Asking someone on a date becomes a draft of your social courage. Taking on a challenging project at work becomes a draft of your professional competence. Apologizing after a misunderstanding becomes a draft of your humility. There are no final failures, only drafts that didn't work, providing crucial information for the next attempt. A rejected proposal is not an end, it's feedback on your pitch draft. A strained conversation isn't a relationship ended, it's a clumsy draft of communication that shows you what to clarify next time. When you view life as a project, your ego gets unhooked from the outcome of each individual action. You become less afraid to try, to risk, to look foolish, because it's all just part of the editing process. The focus moves from protecting a perfect image to the joyful, relentless pursuit of a better draft. So I want to make this practical for you right now. Bring to mind your current daily routine, the rhythm of your mornings, your work habits, your interactions, your evenings. Within that routine, there is almost certainly one small, persistent friction point, one area that feels out of alignment with the person you are trying to become. Perhaps it's the hour you spend scrolling before bed, the tendency to interrupt others in conversation, the avoidance of a particular health task, or the constant clutter on your desk. Identify just one of these friction points. This is your current draft, and it's ready for an edit. Don't plan a massive overhaul. What is one tiny, manageable revision you could make to that sentence in your story tomorrow? It could be as simple as charging your phone in another room to reclaim those last minutes of your day, practicing taking one deep breath before responding in a conversation, or spending just 5 minutes tidying that one corner of your desk. This small edit won't rewrite your entire life overnight, but it will prove to you that you are the author. You hold the pen, and with each conscious revision, no matter how small, you are actively drafting a more intentional, virtuous, and resilient story for yourself. Some things are simply beyond your influence. Acknowledge them and move on. This 20th Stoic Reframe is a profound lesson in energy conservation, teaching you to stop fighting against the unchangeable facts of reality and instead redirect that precious mental and emotional resources toward the things you can actually affect. The constant, exhausting struggle to change what is immutable is like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. It's a battle you are guaranteed to lose, and the effort will leave you drained, frustrated, and powerless. Acceptance in the Stoic sense is not a passive resignation or a defeatist shrug. It is an active, intelligent, and strategic surrender to the truth of the current moment. It is the conscious decision to stop arguing with reality because you recognize that reality will always win. This act of surrender is not weakness, it is the ultimate act of clarity. It creates a solid, unshakable foundation of facts from which you can then launch your most effective and purposeful actions. While not strictly Stoic, the famous Serenity Prayer captures this dichotomy with perfect simplicity. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. The Stoics would wholeheartedly agree with this framework, especially the crucial final line about wisdom. The entire philosophy is built on making that clear distinction. Epictetus's dichotomy of control is the ultimate tool for this, constantly asking us to sort the events of our lives into two piles. Those that are up to us, our opinions, judgments, and actions, and those that are not up to us, everything else. Acceptance is the graceful and immediate release of everything in the second pile. It is the mental sigh of relief that comes when you finally stop trying to control the uncontrollable. This doesn't mean you like the situation. It means you have accepted its existence, which is the necessary first step to dealing with its consequences effectively. Consider the immense power of this reframe in the face of a natural disaster, like a hurricane that devastates a community. The event itself, the force of the storm and the damage it caused, is a fact. It is in the past, it is unchangeable. The person who resists this fact spends their energy on rage at the weather, on endless questions of why me, on wishing desperately that it had never happened. This resistance is a total drain on their resources, leaving them with less capacity for the tasks that actually matter. In contrast, the person who practices Stoic acceptance takes a deep breath and looks squarely at the rubble. They acknowledge the immutable reality. The storm came and my house is damaged. This acceptance is not a happy feeling. It might be accompanied by great sadness, but it is clean. It does not waste energy on fighting a battle that is already over. This clear-eyed acceptance then frees up all their energy for the things that are within their control. They can start clearing debris, they can contact their insurance company, they can help their neighbors, they can make a plan for temporary shelter. Acceptance of the unchangeable fact is the very thing that empowers them to take changeable action on recovery. The same principle applies to a personal health diagnosis, a past mistake with permanent consequences, or the behavior of another person. Accepting the diagnosis allows you to focus on treatment and lifestyle changes. Accepting the past mistake allows you to learn from it rather than be crippled by it. Accepting that you cannot change another person allows you to decide how you will respond to them, protecting your peace. This practice requires brutal honesty and constant vigilance. We are experts at disguising our resistance as productive worry or righteous indignation. We fret over the weather forecast for a week. We obsess over a decision our boss made that we can't reverse. We replay a conversation from years ago wishing we had said something different. All of this is resistance to what is already done. Acceptance is the conscious decision to close those mental browser tabs. It is saying to yourself, that is a fact. I do not like it, but I cannot change it. Therefore, I release it from my circle of concern. This act of release is not a one-time event. It is a muscle you must flex repeatedly throughout your day. Each time you feel yourself tensing up against an unchangeable reality, a traffic jam, a delayed flight, a rainy day, you have an opportunity to practice. You can choose to tense up and fight, or you can choose to exhale and accept. Every time you choose acceptance, you make a deposit into your personal reserve of calm and effectiveness. So let's bring this from the theoretical to the immediate and personal. I want you to press pause for a moment and turn your attention inward. What is one unchangeable fact in your life right now that you have been resisting, that you've been spending mental energy arguing with? It might be a past event you can't undo. It might be a personality trait of someone close to you that consistently frustrates you. It might be a physical limitation or a financial reality that feels constricting. Name it, say it out loud, or write it down in the plainest, simplest terms possible. This is a fact. I cannot change this. Feel the initial resistance that comes up, the part of you that wants to argue. Then take one deep breath and consciously choose to release it. You are not approving of the fact, you are simply ceasing to fight it. This single act of acceptance creates a vacuum of calm, and into that calm space, a new question can naturally arise. Given that this is true, what is the next right action I can take? This is how you turn the heavy weight of resistance into the clear, directed force of purposeful living. Sometimes the best response to absurdity is laughter. This 21st Stoic reframe might seem surprising at first glance. After all, we often picture the Stoic sage as serene and serious, a pillar of unshakable calm. But that calm wasn't always achieved through stern silence. Often, it was reached through a wry smile and a well-timed dose of perspective. The Stoics understood that humor, particularly a gentle, observant wit directed at life's inevitable frustrations, is not a diversion from virtue but a powerful tool for achieving it. It's a way to create instant psychological distance from a problem, to shrink it down to a more manageable size so you can deal with it effectively, rather than being overwhelmed by its apparent gravity. Laughter, in this sense, is a form of intellectual defiance. It is your mind's declaration that while an event may be difficult, it will not be permitted to dominate your entire emotional landscape. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, facing down barbarian invasions and political intrigue, constantly counseled himself to see the world with a detached, almost amused perspective. He wrote in his private meditations how quickly all things disappear, our bodies themselves into the universe and their memories into time, and what is it all but a perpetual comedy? This wasn't a cynical dismissal of life's importance, but a profound method for maintaining equilibrium. By framing the endless drama of human existence as a play, sometimes a farce, he gave himself permission to not take every single twist of plot so personally. He could play his part with dedication and virtue, but from the balcony seat of his own mind, he could also appreciate the absurdity of it all. Similarly, Seneca, who endured exile and chronic illness, wrote extensively on the value of a cheerful heart in enduring hardship. He advised cultivating a spirit that is pleasant and tranquil, and able to take everything in good part. For Seneca, this cheerful endurance wasn't about forced positivity. It was about the deep-seated recognition that a light spirit is far more resilient than a heavy one. A heart weighed down by solemnity breaks more easily than one that has learned to bend with laughter. Imagine a practical application in a modern, high-stakes environment. A tense business meeting where a crucial presentation is completely derailed by a sudden technological failure. The projector dies, the slides are inaccessible, and an awkward silence falls over the room. The project leader feels a surge of panic and embarrassment, the automatic response. But a leader who practices this Stoic reframe might take a different approach. Instead of frantically fumbling or offering grim apologies, they could pause, smile slightly, and say, "Well, it seems our cutting-edge technology has chosen a dramatic moment for a nap. I suppose this means you'll have to endure the old-fashioned art of me just talking to you." This gentle, self-deprecating humor accomplishes several things at once. It immediately releases the tension in the room, unifying everyone in a shared human moment of frustration. It demonstrates immense composure and confidence under pressure, making the leader appear more capable, not less. And most importantly, it reframes the problem. The crisis is no longer a catastrophic failure. It's a minor, amusing obstacle to be worked around. The leader has used humor to reclaim control of the emotional atmosphere, creating the calm space needed to proceed effectively without the slides. This tool is just as potent for personal stress. Stuck in an infuriatingly long line at the grocery store, you can feel your blood pressure rising as you mentally catalog the minutes ticking away. You can choose to stew in that frustration, or you can deploy a moment of internal humor. You might look around and imagine a silly, dramatic narration for the scene. And so our hero's quest for sustenance is thwarted by the ancient, slumbering beast known as the checkout line. Will she prevail before the ice cream melts? Find out next. This tiny internal shift doesn't change the length of the line, but it completely changes your experience of waiting. You've moved from being an angry victim of circumstances to an amused observer of life's little absurdities. The situation becomes a story, and you are no longer trapped in it. You are simply watching it unfold with a sense of curiosity. This is the essence of the Stoic use of humor. It's a cognitive lever that pries you out of a reactive state and into a more empowered, perspective-rich mindset. So I want to offer you a direct and perhaps unexpected challenge. Bring to mind one current, nagging frustration in your life. It could be a daily commute, a repetitive household chore you despise, a minor but persistent tech glitch, or a person whose habits irritate you. Now, your task is not to solve it, but to find one single thing about it that is genuinely, objectively amusing. Look for the absurdity. Maybe it's the dramatic sigh your computer makes when it struggles to load a simple web page, as if it's carrying the weight of the world. Perhaps it's the predictable, almost choreographed way you and your partner have the same minor argument about loading the dishwasher. Maybe it's the ironic contrast of being stuck in traffic while a billboard advertises a car that promises ultimate freedom. Find that one sliver of the situation that can be viewed as a punchline in the grand comedy of life. Just for a moment, allow yourself to laugh at it, even if it's just an internal chuckle. Notice how that simple act of finding the humor immediately lightens the burden, creating a small pocket of peace right in the middle of the frustration. You are a small but essential part of a vast universe. This 20-second Stoic Reframe invites you to zoom out from the tight focus on your individual story and see yourself as a single thread woven into a much larger, magnificent tapestry of existence. The Stoics called this concept cosmopolitanism, the idea that we are not just citizens of a single town or country, but citizens of the entire cosmos. This perspective is a powerful antidote to the anxiety that comes from a self-centered worldview, where every problem feels like a catastrophe and every personal failure feels like the end of the world. When you recognize your small but significant place in the grand scheme of things, your personal worries naturally shrink to a more manageable size. This isn't about diminishing your importance, it's about redefining it. Your significance doesn't come from being the center of the universe, but from playing your unique part in its endless, interconnected dance. It fosters a profound sense of humility that quiets the ego, while simultaneously creating a deep sense of connection that alleviates loneliness. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this idea to ground himself amidst the immense pressures of leadership. He wrote in his Meditations, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." This simple, beautiful metaphor captures the essence of Stoic interconnectedness. The bee is not an isolated entity. Its health and purpose are inextricably linked to the health of the entire hive. In the same way, your well-being is deeply tied to the well-being of your community, your environment, and the broader world. Your actions, however small, ripple outward. A decision made from kindness, integrity, or courage doesn't just benefit you, it strengthens the entire human hive. Conversely, an action born of fear, selfishness, or malice weakens it. This reframe moves your focus from "what's in it for me" to "what does the hive need?" And in doing so, you often find that the answer to your own anxiety and sense of purpose has been there all along, in the service of something greater than yourself. This principle finds powerful, practical expression in the act of volunteering. Imagine someone consumed by their own anxieties, worries about their career, their social standing, their future. Their mental world is a small, echo chamber of self-referential thoughts that amplify their fears. Now, imagine that person decides to spend a Saturday morning serving meals at a local shelter. For those few hours, their focus is completely redirected. They are not thinking about their own problems. They are focused on the person in front of them, on the practical task of providing comfort and nourishment. In that act of service, something magical happens. Their personal anxieties, which felt so massive and overwhelming, temporarily recede. They haven't been solved, but they have been put in their proper perspective. The volunteer often walks away feeling lighter, more connected, and more grateful for what they have. They have tangibly experienced that they are part of a larger whole. Their action, however small, contributed to the well-being of the hive, and in return, the hive gave them the priceless gifts of perspective, connection, and a quieted mind. The anxiety was alleviated not by being solved, but by being made irrelevant for a time by a larger purpose. This sense of cosmic citizenship extends beyond direct human interaction to our relationship with the natural world. Taking a walk in a forest and consciously contemplating the age of the trees, the complexity of the ecosystem, and the vastness of the night sky can trigger the same humbling and calming perspective. You realize that your life is a brief, beautiful flash in the long history of the universe, and that your fundamental responsibility is to play your part well during your time here. This isn't a depressing thought, it's a liberating one. It means the pressure to be perfect, to have everything figured out, to be forever remembered, is lifted. You are freed to simply contribute your best effort to the ongoing story of existence, to be a good citizen of the cosmos. Your value is inherent in your participation, not in your fame or your monumental achievements. So I want to leave you with a question to carry with you today, a way to make this vast philosophical idea intimately personal. In your own life, in your own community, however you define it, your family, your workplace, your neighborhood, your online groups, how do your actions contribute to the health of the hive? It doesn't have to be a grand, dramatic gesture. It could be the patience you show a frustrated coworker, which contributes to a more compassionate work environment. It could be the conscientious way you recycle, which contributes to the health of your local ecosystem. It could be the honest feedback you give a friend, which helps them grow and strengthens your bond. Every day, through countless small choices, you are either strengthening or weakening the networks you are a part of. By consciously choosing actions that benefit the whole, you not only make the world around you slightly better, but you also anchor your own life in a sense of meaning and connection that is far more powerful and enduring than any self-centered worry. Hope is not a plan, but preparation is. This 23rd Stoic Reframe is about building a resilient optimism, one that is not blind to reality but is fortified by it. It's the practice of holding two seemingly contradictory ideas in your mind at once, a positive, hopeful vision for the future, and a clear-eyed, practical plan for navigating potential setbacks. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and they saw it as the cornerstone of a truly unshakable spirit. This isn't about expecting the worst to happen, it's about being prepared for anything to happen. When you have a plan for the storms, you can truly enjoy the sunshine without a lurking anxiety about the clouds that might one day appear. This balanced approach drains future adversity of its power to shock and paralyze you, allowing your hope to flourish not as a fragile wish, but as a confident expectation that you can handle whatever comes your way. Seneca, a master of navigating the turbulent politics of ancient Rome, articulated this balance with perfect clarity. He wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." He goes even further, advising us to actually rehearse in our minds the potential loss of everything we hold dear, not to cultivate fear, but to prove to ourselves that we would survive it. He suggests, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This is the ultimate goal of preparation, to move the feared event from the unknown realm of terrifying possibility into the known realm of manageable reality. By mentally and practically walking through the worst-case scenario, you transform it from a monster under the bed into a simple problem with a set of potential solutions. Your hope is then free to operate from a place of strength, not naivety. Consider the powerful application of this in your professional life. Imagine you are pursuing an ambitious career goal, perhaps aiming for a promotion, launching a side business, or transitioning to a new industry. The hopeful, optimistic approach is to pour all your energy into the positive outcome, visualizing your success. This is vital fuel for motivation, but the Stoic adds a second parallel track, prepared pessimism. This means sitting down for one afternoon and seriously contemplating what you would do if the opposite happened. What if you didn't get the promotion? What if the side business failed to attract customers? What if the new industry didn't pan out? The preparation isn't passive worry, it's active contingency planning. For the promotion seeker, it might mean quietly updating their resume and keeping their professional network warm. For the entrepreneur, it could involve maintaining a robust emergency fund that would cover 6 months of expenses, ensuring a failed launch doesn't mean financial ruin. For the career transitioner, it might mean keeping their current skills sharp or having a part-time bridge job in mind. This preparation does not sabotage your hope, it liberates it. You can pursue your goal with greater daring and creativity because you know, in the back of your mind, that your safety net is woven from practical plans, not just wishes. This principle scales to every aspect of life. Preparing for a loved one's illness by understanding your insurance and having difficult conversations about care preferences is not morbid. It's a profound act of love that allows you to be fully present for them if the worst occurs, rather than being blindsided by logistical chaos. Preparing for a natural disaster by having an evacuation plan and a supply kit doesn't mean you live in constant fear of earthquakes or hurricanes. It means you can sleep more soundly, knowing you've done what you can. In each case, the act of preparation is a reclaiming of agency. You are moving elements of the future from the column of things that happen to you into the column of things you have already thought about and for which you have a response. This is the essence of strategic living, playing offensive with your hopes while playing defense with your preparations. So I want to challenge you to make this philosophy tangible and personal. Set aside 30 minutes this week for a single, focused exercise in Stoic preparedness. Choose one area of your life where you harbor a significant hope, but also an underlying anxiety about what could go wrong. It might be your financial stability, your health, a relationship, or your job security. Now, mentally walk through the absolute worst-case scenario in that area. Don't just feel the fear, follow the steps. If it's your job, what is the first thing you would do if you were laid off? Who would you call? What financial levers could you pull? What skills would you immediately start to update? If it's your health, what is your plan if you received a difficult diagnosis? What are your support systems? What practical arrangements would need to be made? The goal is not to dwell in this space, but to visit it, to map it out, and to prove to yourself that you have the resources and the resilience to navigate it. By doing this, you are not inviting trouble. You are building an intellectual and emotional immune system. You are ensuring that your hope for the best is supported by a quiet, unshakable confidence that you are prepared to handle the rest. What others think of you is their business, not yours. This 24th Stoic Reframe is a radical declaration of internal independence, a conscious decision to shift the source of your self-worth from the fickle court of public opinion to the unwavering tribunal of your own conscience. The Stoics drew a sharp, non-negotiable line between two fundamentally different things: your character, which is the sum of your virtues, your intentions, and your actions as measured against your own principles, and your reputation, which is the collective, often distorted, and always changing perception of you held by others. They argued that the first is entirely within your control and is the only legitimate foundation for a good life, while the second is almost entirely outside your control and is therefore a hopelessly unstable foundation for your happiness. To build your peace upon what people think of you is to build your house on shifting sand, because you are handing over the keys to your inner state to the opinions of others' opinions that are often based on incomplete information, personal biases, and their own private agendas. Epictetus, who cared little for the opinions of the powerful Romans who could have advanced his station, framed this distinction with his characteristic bluntness. He instructed his students, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Don't wish to be thought to know anything." This is a breathtaking inversion of conventional wisdom. He isn't advocating for actual ignorance, he's advocating for a profound indifference to the appearance of knowledge. He's saying that the path to true improvement requires a willingness to let go of the need for external validation, even if it means people temporarily think less of you. Your focus must be on the substance of your growth, not the optics of your intelligence. He goes even further, advising that we should care only about our moral intent and our right action, and be completely indifferent to whether anyone else notices or applauds us for it. Your job is to play your part with virtue and integrity. The audience's reaction is their concern, not yours. Consider a modern professional scenario that puts this principle to the ultimate test. Imagine a mid-level manager in a corporate environment who discovers that a beloved, high-revenue project was approved based on manipulated data that overstates its potential benefits. The easy path, the path that protects reputation, is to stay silent. Speaking up would undoubtedly create conflict, potentially alienate senior leadership who champion the project, and risk labeling the manager as a troublemaker or not a team player. The path of silence protects external image and social standing. The Stoic path, the path of character, is different. It requires the manager to schedule a meeting and present the accurate data, knowing full well it may kill the project and draw ire. Why would they do this? Not for praise or to be seen as a hero, but because integrity is a non-negotiable inner value. The act itself is its own reward. The manager's self-respect comes from knowing they chose honesty over popularity, truth over comfort. The potential damage to their reputation is acknowledged but deemed irrelevant compared to the damage to their character that would occur by staying silent. Ironically, while this action might harm their reputation in the short term, it often builds a deeper, more durable form of respect over the long term, a respect based on proven trustworthiness, not on perceived agreeableness. This reframe is not a license to be inconsiderate or deliberately offensive. Living with virtue inherently includes treating others with respect and kindness. The distinction lies in your motivation. Are you being kind because it is the right thing to do, or because you crave being seen as a kind person? Are you avoiding a hard truth because you don't want to cause harm, or because you are afraid of being disliked? The Stoic is meticulously honest about their own intentions. They act rightly because it aligns with their inner principles, and they release any attachment to how that action is received or perceived. This is the source of incredible courage and calm. You are no longer a marionette whose strings are pulled by the desire for approval. You are the puppeteer, directing your own performance according to a script of your own moral design. So I want to bring this from the philosophical to the intimately personal. Cast your mind back over the last few weeks of your own life. I want you to identify one specific moment, however small, where you were faced with a choice between protecting your image and upholding your character. It might have been a conversation where you could have nodded along with a popular but unkind gossip, but chose to change the subject instead. It might have been an opportunity to take credit for a shared success, but you made sure to highlight your colleague's contribution. It might have been the choice to admit a mistake openly rather than hiding it to save face. Look for that moment. Now, reflect on it not through the lens of how it made you look to others, but through the lens of how it made you feel about yourself. Did that choice, however small, strengthen your own self-respect? Did it feel like a deposit into your internal account of integrity? This act of recognition is how you begin to rewire your priorities, consciously valuing the quiet approval of your own conscience over the noisy and often contradictory opinions of the world. Don't resent others' success, reverse engineer it. This is the powerful pivot of our 25th Stoic Reframe, a strategic transformation of one of our most corrosive emotions, envy, into one of our most productive fuels, the drive for emulation. Envy is a natural, almost instinctive reaction to seeing someone else possess what we desire, but in its raw form, it's a poison we drink ourselves. It fixates on the unfairness of the outcome, breeding bitterness and resentment. The Stoic approach doesn't deny the initial pang of envy. Instead, it intercepts that emotional signal and reprograms it. It asks a simple but life-altering question. If this person has achieved something you want, they must possess a skill, a habit, or a quality that you currently lack. Instead of resenting their possession of the prize, why not become a student of their process? Your envy, when reframed, becomes a personalized curriculum for your own growth, a flashing arrow pointing directly toward the specific virtues you need to cultivate. Seneca, a man who moved in the highest circles of Roman power and wealth, was constantly surrounded by people who had achieved immense success. He saw this not as a threat, but as a living library of lessons. He advised, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. His insight is brilliantly practical. He's telling us to consciously curate our environment and our attention, to seek out those who are ahead of us, not to feel inferior, but to acquire their knowledge. The person you envy is not a rival. They are an unwitting mentor, a walking, talking case study in how to achieve a particular result. Your task is to move from the passive, painful state of wanting what they have to the active, powerful state of doing what they did. This shifts your focus from an external outcome you cannot control to internal actions you absolutely can. Imagine a young writer who sees a former classmate land a lucrative book deal and achieve bestseller status. The unrefined, envious response is to dismiss their work as luck, to grumble about connections in the publishing industry, or to sink into feelings of inadequacy about their own unfinished manuscript. This path leads only to stagnation and bitterness. Now, apply the Stoic Reframe. This writer chooses to see their peers' success not as a verdict on their own failure, but as a masterclass in what is possible. They become a detective of that success. They buy the book and analyze it ruthlessly, not to tear it down, but to understand its structure, its pacing, its character development. They research the author's journey, listening to interviews to learn about their writing habits, their drafting process, how they found their agent. The envy is transformed into a series of actionable questions. Did they write every single day without fail? Do they outline meticulously? Did they build an audience online before pitching? Each answer becomes a specific, emulatable practice. The rival's achievement is no longer a source of pain. It is a benchmark, a proof of concept that provides a detailed roadmap for their own journey. The energy that was once wasted on resentment is now channeled into focused, productive effort. This principle applies with incredible force in the professional world. A colleague gets the promotion you wanted. Envy says, they're a suck-up, or the boss plays favorites. Emulation says, what specific, observable behaviors do they exhibit that I might be missing? It prompts you to notice that they always volunteer for cross-departmental projects, broadening their internal network. It makes you see that their reports are consistently more data-driven and visually polished than yours. It reminds you that they sought out a professional coach to improve their presentation skills. These are not mystical talents, they are learnable skills. Your envy, when harnessed this way, gives you a crystal-clear, high-priority list of competencies to develop. It provides the motivation to finally take that public speaking course, to spend an extra hour refining your next proposal, or to ask for more visibility on key projects. You are no longer competing against them. You are learning from them to compete with your own previous self. So let's make this intensely personal and actionable. I want you to bring to mind one person, real or public, who triggers that familiar, uncomfortable flicker of envy in you. It might be someone in your industry, a fitness influencer, an artist you admire, or even a friend with a seemingly perfect relationship. Now consciously shift the lens. Your challenge is to move from judgment to curiosity. Ask yourself, if their success is the destination, what was the likely route? What one specific, admirable trait or disciplined habit can I identify as a key driver of their achievement? Is it their relentless consistency, their audacious courage to put themselves out there, their deep empathy that connects with people, their meticulous attention to detail? Identify that single, emulatable trait. Your mission is not to become their clone, but to integrate that specific strength into your own unique style. By doing this, you perform the ultimate alchemy on a toxic emotion, turning the lead of envy into the gold of focused, purposeful self-improvement. In silence, you hear the answer's noise obscures. This 26th Stoic Reframe is an invitation to step away from the relentless hum of the external world and into the fertile quiet of your own mind. We live in an age of unprecedented noise, not just auditory noise from devices and media, but the constant mental chatter of notifications, opinions, obligations, and distractions. This cacophony acts like static on a radio signal, drowning out the clear, steady frequency of your own inner voice, your core values, and your deepest intuitions. The Stoics understood that to navigate life with wisdom and purpose, you must periodically retreat from the forum of public opinion and return to the inner sanctum of your own judgment. Solitude and silence were not seen as punishments or signs of antisocial behavior. They were essential disciplines for mental hygiene, strategic retreats for gaining perspective and renewing your strength. It is in the quiet that you can finally process the events of the day, sift your reactions from your principles, and remember who you are beneath all the roles you play for others. Marcus Aurelius, despite the crushing demands of leading an empire, fiercely guarded moments of quiet retreat. He wrote in his Meditations, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." For him, this wasn't a physical escape to a countryside villa. It was a psychological maneuver he could perform anywhere, even amidst the chaos of the battlefield or the political intrigue of the palace. He would withdraw into his own mind, a fortress of silence where the shouts of the crowd and the flattery of courtiers could not reach him. In that self-created solitude, he could consult his own reason, reaffirm his commitment to virtue, and untangle the complex problems of state with a clarity that external noise made impossible. This practice of inner retreat is the ultimate Stoic superpower, the ability to find profound silence and solitude even when you are physically surrounded by people and activity. It's the mental equivalent of closing a soundproof door in the middle of a bustling airport. The practical application of this in our modern world is both simple and profoundly challenging. It begins with the deliberate, scheduled creation of external quiet to help cultivate the internal kind. This isn't about becoming a hermit. It's about carving out intentional pockets of stillness in your daily routine. One of the most powerful practices is a daily period of quiet time, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. This could take the form of morning meditation before you check your phone, sitting with a cup of tea in a quiet corner and simply watching the sunrise, or taking a walk without headphones, allowing your thoughts to wander and settle without an external soundtrack. The goal isn't to achieve a blank mind, but to become an observer of your own mental landscape. Another potent tool is Stoic journaling, a practice Marcus Aurelius himself engaged in. This isn't a diary of events, but a conversation with your own best self. You pose yourself questions in writing. What am I mistaking for a crisis that is merely an inconvenience? Where did I act out of anger today instead of principle? What is one thing within my control that I can focus on right now? The act of writing forces a slowing down, a clarity of thought that silent contemplation alone can sometimes lack. It's in these quiet, reflective practices that the noise of the day settles, and your core intentions and values rise to the surface, becoming the compass that guides your next actions. Consider the effect of this on a common modern dilemma: feeling overwhelmed and pulled in a dozen different directions at work. Your inbox is overflowing, your calendar is a mosaic of conflicting commitments, and your phone is buzzing incessantly. The typical reaction is to try to move faster, to multitask, to respond to every ping, which only leads to more mental fragmentation and anxiety. Now apply the Stoic Reframe. Instead of diving deeper into the noise, you consciously step back. You close your email, put your phone in a drawer, and sit in silence for 10 minutes. At first, your mind might race with all the things you should be doing, but if you just breathe and let those thoughts pass without engaging them, a shift occurs. The panic subsides. In the ensuing quiet, a single, clear priority often emerges. The one report that actually matters, the one client who truly needs a call, the one strategic problem that deserves your full focus. The silence didn't create that clarity. It simply allowed you to hear it over the din. You return to your work not with a frazzled sense of urgency, but with a calm, directed purpose. The same principle applies to personal conflicts. An argument with a partner can leave your mind swirling with hurtful words and defensive retorts. Taking an hour of solitude for a walk or to sit quietly in another room allows those heated emotions to cool. In the silence, you might gain the perspective to see your own role in the conflict or to understand their point of view, paving the way for a more constructive conversation later. So I want to offer you a direct and immediate challenge, a way to experience this profound shift for yourself. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I want you to carve out just 10 minutes of complete, uninterrupted silence. It doesn't have to be a formal meditation. You can simply sit in a chair or stand on a balcony or walk slowly around your block. The only rules are no phone, no music, no podcasts, no other people to talk to. For those 10 minutes, your only task is to be present with your own thoughts. Don't try to force them or control them. Just observe them like clouds passing in the sky. Notice the urge to reach for a device and then let the urge pass. You might be astonished at what arises in that space: a creative solution to a problem you've been stuck on, a moment of gratitude you'd overlooked, a sudden clarity about a decision you've been putting off, or simply a deep sense of calm that had been buried under the day's noise. This small investment in silence is not a waste of time. It is the most strategic reinvestment you can make in your own clarity, perspective, and peace. Remembering you will die can help you truly live. This is the profound and seemingly paradoxical heart of our 27th Stoic Reframe, a practice known as memento mori, the remembrance of death. Far from being a morbid or depressing fixation, the Stoics used this awareness as the ultimate tool for creating focus, urgency, and a deep, vibrant appreciation for the present moment. They understood that the shadow of our finite existence is what gives the light of our lives its shape and brilliance. By keeping the inevitability of death close at hand, we are constantly reminded to stop wasting our precious time on trivialities, petty grievances, and endless procrastination. It acts as a ruthless editor for our lives, compelling us to cut away everything that is not essential, not meaningful, and not aligned with our deepest values. This is not about fearing the end. It's about being jolted awake by it, using the certainty of the finish line to run our race with more purpose and passion. Seneca, who wrote extensively on the brevity of life, put it with his characteristic piercing clarity: "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." This is a stunningly liberating idea. He's saying that the fear of death is the master that keeps us in chains, chains of conformity, of people-pleasing, of playing it safe. But when you truly confront and accept your own mortality, you break those chains. What can anyone really do to you once you have made peace with the ultimate outcome? This knowledge frees you to take bold risks, to speak your truth, to pursue your unique path without being crippled by the fear of failure or social judgment. In another letter, Seneca advises, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The one who puts the finishing touches on their life every day is never short of time. This is the practical application. Live each day with the consciousness that it could be your last, not in a panicked way, but in a way that ensures you leave nothing important unsaid or undone. You become a meticulous steward of your hours, investing them only in what truly matters. Consider the transformative power of this reframe in a real-life scenario. Imagine a talented accountant in her mid-40s, secure in her stable but unfulfilling job, who has always dreamed of leaving to become a landscape photographer. She's spent years talking about it, researching cameras and dreaming of travel, but she's always held back by the practical risks, the loss of a steady income, the fear of not being good enough, the comfortable inertia of her current life. Then she experiences a significant health scare. A routine checkup leads to a biopsy, and for 2 agonizing weeks, she is forced to confront the very real possibility of a terminal diagnosis. During those 14 days, her entire perspective shifts. The trivial stresses of her job fade into irrelevance. The opinions of skeptical relatives no longer carry any weight. The financial security she prized so highly suddenly feels like a gilded cage. All that remains is a piercing, painful regret for the dreams she deferred. When the results finally come back clear, the relief is overwhelming, but it is accompanied by a new and unshakable resolution. The brush with mortality was the catalyst she needed. Within 6 months, she has developed a concrete plan, downsized her lifestyle to reduce expenses, and given her notice. The health scare didn't change her. It simply removed the blinders of fear that had been preventing her from becoming who she always was. She used the awareness of death to finally start living. This principle doesn't require a near-death experience to be effective. It is a mental muscle we can flex every single day. It's the reason we feel a surge of love for our family after attending a funeral. It's the clarity that strikes us when we hear about the sudden passing of someone young. Memento mori is the practice of harnessing that clarity without needing an external tragedy to trigger it. It's a voluntary wake-up call. It's the question that cuts through all the noise of modern life. If today were the last day of my life, would I be doing what I am about to do? If the answer is consistently no, then you have a clear and urgent mandate to change your course. This reframe makes you less tolerant of time-wasting activities, less interested in superficial drama, and more courageous in expressing affection and appreciation. You stop saving your best china for a special occasion and start using it on a random Tuesday, because the special occasion is now. So I want to leave you with a question that is simple to ask but profound in its implications. A question designed to bring the sharp focus of memento mori into your immediate present. Don't answer it quickly, truly sit with it and let it unravel in your mind. If you had firm, undeniable knowledge that today was the very last day of your life, what one thing would you absolutely make sure to do? Not the bucket list item of skydiving or seeing the pyramids. Those are often expressions of a life not yet fully lived. Look deeper. Would you make a long overdue phone call to offer forgiveness or seek it? Would you write a letter to your child telling them everything you love about them? Would you simply sit quietly in the garden, holding the hand of someone you love, fully present and without distraction? The answer to that question is a direct message from your deepest self, pointing you toward what you value most when all the superficial layers are stripped away. That action, that feeling, that connection, that is what deserves more of your time and attention, starting not tomorrow, but today. Your mind can be an unassailable fortress of calm, a sanctuary of reason that no external chaos can ever breach. This is the ultimate aim of our final Stoic Reframe, the cultivation of what the ancients called your inner citadel. Imagine a mighty fortress built on a hill, its walls so thick and high that the storms raging outside cannot touch the tranquility within. The Stoics envisioned our character in precisely this way, not as a fragile structure buffeted by every wind of fortune, but as a stronghold built upon the bedrock of our deepest principles and values. The storms will still come: criticism, failure, loss, the unpredictable turmoil of life, but they cannot shake you at your foundation. Your peace is no longer dependent on calm weather. It becomes the immutable climate of your own soul, a state of being you carry within you regardless of the turbulence outside. Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political intrigue, military disasters, and personal loss, constantly returned to this image to maintain his equilibrium. He wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And in another passage, he visualized this inner space with stunning clarity. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig. These are not just pretty phrases, they are the architectural plans for your mental fortress. He's telling us that the source of our strength and serenity isn't out there in the world of shifting events and other people's opinions. It is an internal wellspring, fed by our own reasoned judgments and virtuous choices. The citadel isn't built from stone and mortar, but from the daily practice of aligning your actions with your core beliefs, so that over time, those beliefs become an unconquerable part of who you are. Consider a powerful modern example of this inner citadel in action. Imagine an emergency room doctor in the middle of a mass casualty event. The scene is pure chaos, alarms blaring, people shouting, the overwhelming pressure of life and death decisions needing to be made in seconds. Panic is a natural human reaction, but the doctor who has cultivated their inner citadel does something different. They take a fraction of a second to connect with their core principle. My duty is to provide the greatest good for the greatest number. This isn't a conscious thought so much as a deep, embodied truth. That single, unwavering principle cuts through the noise and the emotion. It allows them to triage patients with clear-eyed efficiency, to make difficult choices without being paralyzed by fear or sentimentality, and to remain a calm, commanding presence that others can rely on. The chaos hasn't disappeared, but it has been walled out of their mind. They are operating from within their fortress, guided by a light that external events cannot dim. Their composure isn't a lack of feeling, it's the supreme confidence that comes from being anchored to something more solid than the storm. This principle scales to our everyday battles just as effectively. Perhaps you're in a business meeting where a colleague is aggressively attacking your proposal, questioning your competence in front of your peers. The external event is their criticism. The untrained mind might react with defensiveness, anger, or self-doubt, all of which would only weaken your position. But if you have built an inner citadel on the principle of seeking truth over winning arguments, your response changes entirely. From within your fortress, you can hear their critique not as a personal attack, but as potential data. You can calmly ask, what specific part of the proposal concerns you? And what evidence would help alleviate that concern? You remain unshaken because your self-worth is not tied to their approval. It is tied to your own commitment to rationality and improvement. The meeting's outcome is now a secondary concern. Your primary victory is the preservation of your own integrity and calm. The beauty of this Stoic concept is that your citadel is uniquely yours, built from the principles you choose to value most highly. For one person, the cornerstone might be compassion. For another, it could be honesty, courage, or justice. The specific virtue matters less than the act of consciously choosing it, and then using it as your compass in every situation, especially the difficult ones. Each time you act from that principle instead of reacting from fear or ego, you add another stone to your walls. Each time you choose what is right over what is easy, you deepen your well of inner strength. Over time, this practice forges a resilience that is not brittle but flexible, not cold but deeply humane, a calm so profound that it becomes your greatest asset in a world of noise and change. So as we conclude this journey through the 28 reframes, I want to leave you with a final, foundational task, the first brick in the construction of your own unshakable inner citadel. Take a moment to look within and ask yourself, what is the one core principle, the single non-negotiable value that I want to become the bedrock of my character? It might be a commitment to kindness even when others are not. It might be a dedication to lifelong learning. It might be the courage to speak truth gently. Choose just one, define it clearly for yourself, and then make a silent vow that for the next week you will use that principle as your sole guide in moments of tension or uncertainty. When a challenge arises, ask yourself, what would someone who embodies this principle do right now? This simple act of conscious alignment is how you begin building. It is how you transform philosophy from an interesting idea into a lived reality, creating a sanctuary of peace within yourself that no outside storm can ever take away. And so we arrive at the end of our journey through these 28 powerful mental reframes, each one a key designed to unlock a more resilient, strategic, and peaceful way of being. What may have started as a list of philosophical ideas has, I hope, revealed itself to be something far more practical, a complete operating system for the mind. These are not mere positive affirmations to be recited, but cognitive tools to be wielded, each one forged in the fires of ancient wisdom to help you transform raw emotional turmoil into crystalline strategic insight. Collectively, they form a mosaic of resilience, teaching us that our greatest power does not lie in controlling the unpredictable events of life, but in mastering our perceptions, our judgments, and our responses to them. This is the true alchemy of Stoicism, turning the lead of hardship into the gold of character, and the chaos of feeling into the clarity of purpose. Throughout this exploration, several core themes have emerged as the bedrock of this philosophy. The profound dichotomy of control, which teaches us to invest our energy only where it truly counts. The liberating power of perspective, which allows us to reassign meaning to events and see obstacles as opportunities. The graceful art of acceptance, which is not passive surrender but an active strategy for peace, allowing us to stop fighting reality and start working with it. These are not separate ideas but interconnected strands of a single, unbreakable rope, a lifeline you can cast to yourself in the midst of any storm. They remind us that while we cannot choose the music the world plays for us, we can always choose how we dance to it. This is the essence of turning emotional reactivity into purposeful response. To send you off with one final spark of insight, let's turn to a powerful, though perhaps less familiar, thought from Seneca. He wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." This is the ultimate encapsulation of our entire journey. The friction, the trials, the very things we instinctively recoil from. These are not interruptions to a good life. They are the essential polishing agents that reveal our true brilliance and strength. The Stoics didn't seek out suffering, but they did not waste it when it arrived. They used it. They let it sand away their rough edges of fear, pride, and attachment, until all that remained was a core of unshakable virtue and calm. Your challenges are not here to break you, they are here to polish you. Now, the most important step is to move from understanding to action. The sheer number of reframes can feel overwhelming, so I urge you not to try and adopt them all at once. Instead, let this be your first practical application of Stoic wisdom. Choose just one. Scroll back through this video and identify the single reframe that resonated most deeply with you, the one that felt like it was speaking directly to a current challenge in your life. Perhaps it's the practice of pausing before you react, or the decision to see criticism as useful data, or the commitment to focus only on what you can control. For the next week, make that one reframe your personal meditation. Carry it with you. Apply it consciously to your daily interactions and inner dialogues. Watch how this single shift in perception begins to alter your experience of the world, and then I would be truly honored if you would share your experience in the comments below. Tell us which reframe you chose and what you discovered. This is how we learn and grow together, building a community around practical wisdom. If these ideas have helped you see your challenges in a new light, if you'd like to continue this journey of building unshakable resilience and strategic calm, then please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. It helps immensely in bringing this practical philosophy to more people who need it. Thank you for investing this time in your own inner development. Remember, the goal is not to become impervious to feeling, but to become the calm, clear-eyed author of your response. You have everything you need already within you. Go forth and polish your